part of the Earglue Media family of podcast.
You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 329, A New Hope. This is part of our 9-series Saga podcast sessions. Start looking back at all of the Skywalker Saga films and kind of giving you some retrospective things, both on-screen, off-screen, on-screen, off-screen. And we are also doing what we do best here, I think, and that is breaking down some scenes and analysis, some of our favorite moments in Star Wars kind of at the very end of the show. And joining me tonight is none other. He's been waiting for this his whole life.
Yeah,
Mike Rondo is here. Welcome back, Mike, to the show. How are you doing, sir?
I got to be honest. I was sweating. Well, today has been a hot day here in Rhode Island, and it's 90 degrees isn't bad. The problem is in like New England.
Yeah,
it's like when it's humid. So it's not like the humid like you get in Florida where you like swimming and it's kind of
you're fine.
It's oppressive, but you can kind of deal with it. Here it's like they took you in grandma's soup and put you in grandma's boiling soup. That's what it feels like. So I've been hot all day. That's why all the machines are off. Everything's pretty much off. But before we went on the air, Albert, and I hit the button, and I'm like, oh, crap, did I hit the wrong button again?
Oh, my goodness.
That's why I'm laughing, because I'm like, oh, man, whew, I did it. It's all right.
I would have enjoyed that. You would have never
Yeah.
heard the end of it, because that would have been 2 times in the last 30 days that you've done that.
Well,
so.
that's what I was afraid of. I was like, oh, Albert's going to never let me hear the end of this. So, but I'm going old school tonight, Albert. Look at that.
Oh, wow, look at you.
Yeah.
You got a fine
The
beverage
adult
there.
Beverage is out tonight.
So I don't. I'm drinking my decaf coffee here, but I did break out the original. This is my New Hope. This thing's like a tankard, man. New Hope
I know, really. Jeez.
coffee mug.
That's
It's
like
like
a
the
beer stein.
it's like the big gulp of coffee mugs.
Yeah, looks
So.
it. Anyway,
So we got a bit of news, a bit of bad news for anyone that's watching, and there's not many. No, I'm kidding. But anyone listening,
there really isn't.
last show we teased that someone was
Albert
coming
lied.
back. I did not lie.
No, you
We
lied.
Just had something come up, and so unfortunately, Jonesy will not be joining us tonight on the show. He is slated to come back next week, but that's tentative, so I don't want to promise anything because we're kind of slowly working him back in here.
Yeah.
So apologies to anybody that tuned in, especially his mom. I know who's watching. Hi, Miss Mrs. Jones. How are you doing? So do sincerest apologies. But no, he seriously won't be here on the show. We do expect him to be back next week, but it's tentative. So he will be back. It's imminent. Let's just leave it at that. He will be back.
Life
very, very
happens,
soon.
man.
It does.
You never know. He'll pop in one day. I swear
It
he
really
will.
does.
And I'm going to pop out someday, and it'll be great
Yeah.
for everybody.
Again, false
Anyway.
promises we cannot keep.
Yes, someday.
All right. Well, let's get into the show because we were originally going to talk about news, but I told Mike, I was like, this is probably going to be a 2-hour show because I could talk about A New Hope for at least 3 hours, but I'm thinking if we can just get it under 2,
Yeah,
then
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, let's not. No.
All right,
An hour
well,
and 20.
Hour and 20, hour and 30. I don't know.
Already-
Sit back, get a beverage, go pee right
Yeah.
now because it's going to be a while.
Well,
But we're going to dive into it. We're going to jump
Yes.
right into it.
We're
So
skipping the news, so that's
we're
good.
skipping the news. Let's jump into the tail of the tape. So this is kind of where we talk about how Star Wars did at the box office. And I mean, everybody's probably heard this story, right? Star Wars is one of the biggest films. It's in the top 5. It's in the top 10 in terms of how much money it grossed, and especially when you consider the cost of inflation, right? If you
Yes.
adjust for the cost of inflation, this sucker comes in at number 4 at about $3 billion worldwide. Now, where does that sit relative to some of the other big blockbuster movies? Let's see. We've got Gone with the Wind is still number 1.
Yep.
It's going to be really hard to beat that, honestly, and there's a lot of reasons why, but beyond the scope of what we need to talk about tonight. Avatar is number 2. Titanic.
That doesn't really count. Did that even happen? Like Avatar? Yeah, I don't know. We shouldn't count that.
Watch your
Avatar.
dirty mouth.
Yeah, no,
Avatar's a great movie.
What is wrong with you?
Anyways, all right.
Well,
So
seriously, it's just like the film appraisers just talked like M. Shyamalan there, and his village is like better than Clerks, the movie Clerks. Get the heck out of here, people.
Look, we're not talking about
Michaela,
Avatar.
I got words with you, Michaela, but anyway.
All right.
Sorry, I'm
So
throwing
we're-
this off.
We're
Let's
not
go.
talking about Avatar movie
bit of a rant,
based on the
sorry.
Nickelodeon cartoon. We're talking about Avatar, the James Cameron thing, right?
Yeah, well, the other Avatar's all right. This one's just
anyways.
Anyway.
So that's number 2. Titanic is number 3.
Yeah.
And then it's Star Wars, Endgame, Sound of Music, E.T., Ten Commandments, Dr. Zhivago, and then The Force Awakens, which we're going to talk about here in a few weeks, makes an appearance at number 10. So again, that's the top 10 films all time adjusted for inflation. So I guess the way to kind of put a bow on that is, I mean, everybody saw this movie, right? I mean, everybody has a story, at least at the time when this came out. You're hard-pressed to find somebody who didn't go see it in some way. Now, there's people out there who just have no interest in the genre and all of that, but this really hit mass media. This was a pop culture phenomenon. There were people that had never really dipped their toes in sci-fi, because prior to that, they had like 2001, which probably bored them because it wasn't, the action-oriented type science fiction film that you would like Star Wars was. And everything else seemed kind of cheesy, right? We had things like some of the inspirations like Flash Gordon, right? That was probably in their mind, this is what sci-fi was.
Yeah.
I think at the time we also had Planet of the Apes. So that probably helped kind of break the ground to some extent for the sci-fi genre and opened up the door for Star Wars to kind of have at least capture the interest of a lot of viewers as well. But I thought
Star Trek as well.
Star Trek too. I mean the TV series. I don't think the movie wasn't out yet. Obviously the motion picture.
Yeah, as much as it pains me to say that Star Trek kind of helped that, it's funny because it kind of like Star Wars paved the way for the movie for Star Trek too. They kind of helped each other in a way. But enough of that anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. So I got to ask you then. So
okay.
I mean, do you think, and this is probably a no-brainer kind of question, but do you think there'll ever be a movie that's able to top Star Wars, much less Gone with the Wind at this point?
Oh yeah, I think it'll happen again.
So?
Well, again, as we discussed on the roundtable, like movie theaters are in trouble right now, and they're kind of going the way of the dodo bird, really. So it's hard to say. I mean, they're going to have to judge it based on, I don't know, depending on how things change, right? With the home release stuff, then you're going to have to, so I'll say possibly.
Okay, so same question. Will a Star Wars movie ever beat number 4? Will it ever, I mean, I don't think it'll ever hit number 1, but do you think anything will ever come close to beating Star Wars?
No.
Yeah, I'm agree. I'd have to agree. I don't know.
They had the shot. I mean, The Force Awakens was that shot. And that's it. That's as close as you got to get. I mean, that's still pretty good, though. I mean, come on. You're in the top 10 there, so that's pretty good track record,
Yeah, and I don't think it's anything against Star Wars, really. I mean, it's like you said, it's a kind of a sign of the times. It's where we are right now in the movie industry and where people spend their money. There's just so much more competition out there in terms of what you spend your money on these days with all the different forms of media. Whereas things, were simpler back in 1977. Certainly with The Force Awakens, that was kind of a different being because of the time span. So I would say if Star Wars was one of these things where it went away tomorrow and we didn't see it or hear again for about the next 20 years, okay, maybe it has a shot. I don't know. It's probably got a better shot than any other movie, but that's likely not going to happen. Disney's not going to allow this thing to sit idle for that long. So I think it's going to be, I don't think you're going to see another movie, a Star Wars movie at least, that kind of breaks that top 10. But all right, so
something similar, like the genre, like fantasy, sci-fi, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's hard.
I mean, Avatar is a great example of that, right? No one expected Avatar to do as well as it did.
I don't know. I think that was just
some of us regret. Some of us hate the fact that Avatar did as well as it did. Some of us to my right,
yes,
or left. I don't know what that is. All right. Anyways,
my left, your right. Is that
maybe?
Yeah. Whatever.
So those of you listening in on audio, by the way, we are doing the show live. We do them live, so that's why we're saying that. All right.
Yeah. Poor people watching us, but anyway,
the people are dropping like flies right now. Let's. I want to. You share with me your original viewing of Star Wars, because I honestly don't know that I've ever heard this story. At least not sober. And no, from you, not from me. But what was your first experience with Star Wars? Like, when did you first see it? Were you a kid? Theaters?
I was a kid. On? Well, I didn't see it in the theater. The Return of the Jedi was my first Star Wars movie in a theater. That's when things were magical to me. This, I can't remember if I saw this on like CBS or ABC or something like that, or it was HBO at the time back in the day. I can't remember exactly. I want to say
you
it was
saw it
HBO.
on TV.
Yeah, I saw it on TV. So
yeah, okay.
I want to say it was HBO or something. Like we had cable and I saw it that way. I don't think it was on like ABC or anything like that, or or CBS. I want to say it's a possibility, but I can't remember that much. All I know is before that, my brother would tell me these stories of Star Wars, and we had the comic books, and like I don't want to say golden books, but other
Right.
reading stuff and whatever that was around. And he had every action figure under the sun.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew going in what it was going to be about, and of course, I believe he ruined the big moment for me. With I am, but we'll save that for next week. So
Yeah.
that was kind of how my older brother introduced me into it. Really, that's how my way. And then the guy down the street, John, was a big fan. Had most of the toys and action figures, so I played with most of his stuff. I didn't really have all my stuff. I had my brother's hand-me-downs, but he had a whole bunch of stuff too. But
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't introduced the way like you were with the theater and the whole craziness. I wish I'd got to experience that because it's kind of weird. I'm in the fan base or the original trilogy, like that fan base where I caught the end of it and I loved it and it meant something to me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it obviously it made something in my life because here
Yeah.
I am with you all these years later. And then I got to see the prequel trilogy, but it as magical as that was, after 16 years, and that was great. And then of course with the Force Awakens, everything that was cool too. I'll never be able to experience what you did back then. Like I miss that first, it's like when you take the phone, the cellophane off the iPhone thing. Like I didn't get that
Yeah.
moment with Star Wars. I've had big moments and special moments like that with the crowd and everything, but not that. Even though I'm an original trilogy guy or fan, like I didn't experience
Mm-hmm.
what you got to experience. I just
Well,
missed the window, which sucks, but I get it though.
yeah, but I'll say this: I don't appreciate the fans out there that somehow hold the idea or this fact that they got to see it in the theater as like some level of fandom. Like it's just that
Oh
bothers
yeah,
me so much, and you see it all the
can't
time.
do
It's
that.
like, well, I'm
Yeah.
an original. I saw it. I stood in line. I don't care. Nobody cares. It's like that doesn't justify my fandom being any more or
Oh, I
greater
agree.
than
Yeah.
yours, right? And I just want to put that out there that I don't go into talking about this stuff that way because to be honest, I was only 5 years old when I saw it, and what I saw was, I mean, I have images in how of the experience, but I can't tell you like, oh, I remember we stood in line and I remember
Yeah.
buying popcorn and I remember I don't have those images. I don't have those memories. I have just memories of like flashes of imagery and things that I saw. But quickly, because I've told this story a million times on this show, and I've told it more recently on another show that I was a guest on. Um, but for me, I saw it at a drive-in theater, and we didn't have a drive-in theater in our town. So I grew up in a place called Shelby, Michigan, which had a very small it had like hundreds of people, and that was literally the population. And so you had to drive to the next small town to get to a get to a drive-in. And so we drove out to there. We saw it there, and I mean, it was all more visual for me because
Yeah.
the sound was coming through a tiny little speaker, right?
Yeah,
That was
little-
hooked, that was
little-
hanging off your window
Hey,
of the
drive-ins
driver's
might be
side.
coming back though. These
Oh, they are.
times.
They're booming out here in Austin. I'll tell you that.
So yes, but continue. Sorry.
But no, yeah. So I mean, I didn't get the audio experience by any means whatsoever. Right? It was as
So
best
it's
as
like a
coming through a little
mono
crackly speaker. Oh
right
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Imagine you're at the drive-through on a bad speaker trying to order a cheeseburger, a number 2 combo, hold the onions, and that
That's
sound
it.
that's coming out of that's what we were getting listening to and watching Star Wars, right?
It's amazing because your iPhone has better speakers
Yeah,
than that
absolutely.
was.
Oh yeah.
It's
I mean,
tinier.
it was.
Yeah.
But even still, I mean, I know that captured me, right? The imagery captured me, and what I was seeing visually was just. I mean, I was only 5 years old, so
Well, of
I don't want to
course.
say
No,
like I've
I-
never seen anything like that before. Well, of course I hadn't. I was only 5. I'd seen nothing but cartoons at that point. But and then it wasn't even until years later. It wasn't until Empire Strikes Back that I saw it in the theater, and it wasn't when Empire came out because the only theater that was close to us, we had to drive almost 40 minutes to a town called Muskegon. We had to drive there to get to a mall that had a theater, and that was and I'd already seen I think Raiders at that point.
Yeah.
And it's real foggy now, but I think Raiders was the first one I saw, and I saw Empire probably on the way out because it ran forever, right? This is back in the days when movies would run for.
Yeah.
I mean, Star Wars ran for over a year. There's posters out there. You go look at it. It's got the birthday cake showing the 1 year, anniversary
Which is
birthday
another.
kind of thing.
Back to your original point. This is another reason why you won't see that.
Right.
You know what
they
I
don't
mean?
stay in. They don't stay in there
Yeah,
that long.
No, because they want home release and all that other, but all that other stuff. But yeah, I didn't get to see Empire. I don't know why, to be honest. I was a little older. I probably could have saw it.
You're probably in trouble. punishment.
Well, the good chances that I was because it was me. But I do remember Return of the Jedi. That was very vivid, and we'll talk about it next time.
Yeah.
Well, when we get to Return of the Jedi. So, but yeah, I unfortunately I missed that window, and I see, when you watch Empire Dreams and they show all the footage and the theater and everything, and people
Right.
talking about it, that the world was just different after that. I get it. I totally get it. I just wasn't, able to go in line and experience that like you did. You got to, at least yours was unique. It was a drive-through, right? It wasn't like,
Well, drive-in, not a drive-through.
Drive-in.
It sounded like a drive-through, but yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I got confused, But that's a unique experience too, because a lot of people that are probably watching and listening now, well, now they're going to get into drive-ins. But prior to that, they weren't around. We only have one that's right up the road from me. That's the last one, like in Rhode Island, but we'll probably have 10 more by next week. Who knows with the way things are going? So
yeah, it's funny how COVID kind of kickstarted that whole little film or that industry all over again. So, all right. So let's. So before we get into on screen, just a couple more off screen things I want to talk about. We can't not mention all the inspiration that came from things like Flash Gordon, The Hidden Fortress. Which, by the way, have you ever seen? We've never talked about this either, but have you ever watched The Hidden Fortress, the Kurosawa film?
I have. The last time I watched it, I think it was just before The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
'Cause I think Ryan Johnson referenced that in The Great Escape. I think he referenced or whatever. So we watched it. I watched it. But yeah, definitely
It's
watched
kind of
it.
one of these rite of
interesting.
passages for a Star Wars fan, right? Like you start to hear about all the influences, and I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I've heard other people talk about this as well. Like when they really start to get into Star Wars and they want, they've seen all the movies and they're like, okay, I need something more. I want to take it to the next level. They try to enrich their experience by going back and looking at the original source type stuff. And that film comes up because of some of the characters and the storyline, and there's some very similar plots that are happening in parallel. But that is a great film. So I recommend it to anybody that's not had a chance to see The Hidden Fortress. I think you owe it to yourself, especially if you're listening to the show. You probably owe it to yourself to go out and watch the movie. I will say it's black and white. It is subtitled. It's all in Japanese, right? So I just want to make sure you know what you're getting into. But it's a great movie. Like it really is.
You get
captivating.
past all that though. You get.
Absolutely.
You move right past that when you
it's a testament to Kurosawa's directing more than anything.
Yes.
I mean, he really has a way of kind of putting you in there in the film. But all right, and then obviously The Adventures of Robin Hood, and we're going to talk a little bit about how those influenced Star Wars and what we saw in Star Wars, because it was a very different, very unique film in a lot of different ways, and a lot of that was because it drew its inspiration from things like The Hidden Fortress, Flash Gordon, and that sort of thing. But let's talk about the toys. So you've already mentioned your brother had the toys. So were you living vicariously through your brother and what he was watching and playing with, or did you at some point did they finally say, okay, Mike, Mom, Dad, they finally gave in and bought you your own Millennium Falcon?
Oh, no, nothing like that. I had, those were hand-me-downs, or I borrowed, so to speak.
Right.
And I remember when Empire came around, or just before Empire, I was fighting over the Boba Fett. Like that was like a war between me and my brother, and I somehow won. Like I think he was older, so he's like, yeah, all right, I've moved on.
Yeah,
you can kind of have it.
Hand-me-downs.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember the toys vividly. I remember playing with them constantly. And I always laughed because they didn't look like the figures, like Luke with the yellow saber and the way it came out, and Obi-Wan in the fancy 70s cape that he had, the vinyl cape going on and all that. It was weird. I'm trying to remember when I was a kid, like the Jawa, one came clothed and one came like plastic, and I can't remember which one we had. Yeah.
This is the cloth one, and this is compliments of my brother who's actually on right now.
Yes, I saw.
He handed me this just like last weekend. So
I don't know if we had that one or we had I think we had that one, to be honest. I mean, it was so long ago. It was almost 40-something years ago, or 30-some-odd years, 38, 30, whatever it was. But it's funny because I got the side. No, it wasn't. Gentle Giant made these giant replicas of the original action figures, and I do have C-3PO, R2-D2, and I have the Jawa. And I think the Jawa has the cloak on, like the cloth cloak on. So yeah. So but I can't remember originally, but I just remember playing with Obi-Wan all the time, Luke, Leia, Han,
Yep.
all them. Empire. I remember liking Empire's action figures better in the originals, of course, Boba Fett. But I liked Han in his snowsuit.
Yeah, I
Leia
think
and
they did a better
yeah,
job. I think when Empire came
yeah,
out of like the models and a little
yeah.
bit more accurate.
I just like. I thought it was cooler. And then of course, Return of the Jedi. I had one of my favorites was the Biker Scouts. Of course, we had the Royal Guards. Those were the other. Yep, I didn't have the Palpatine one.
Good for you.
Strangely, I didn't have Palpatine, but I have him here. Where is he? Nope, I got Luke here.
Oh,
Yeah,
look at that.
this guy's been with me podcasting since the start. Like this is my luck charm right now.
Really?
So yes, I've had every time I podcast, he's right there.
He stands right there.
Yes, guarding me, giving
Very
me
nice.
Advice. Yes, it's lovely. But
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, the only thing is just to mention, like, you can't. I mean, the action figures, and there's a story. If you haven't had a chance to go watch the Toys That Made Us, which is the Netflix series, that is an amazing series, and you owe it to yourself again to go watch that because it does talk about how much of how much Star Wars really impacted Kenner and kind of launched them into the stratosphere, really, and they never looked back from that. Not to say that they weren't doing all right, but there's my brother. Yeah, I forced him to watch it.
Yeah, that sounds very Albert. That story right there. That
Right.
definitely. I'm
Um,
not surprised by that. But
yeah.
anyway,
But anyways, yeah. So the toys, then people still collect them. I mean, it just launched a whole different thing. And Lucasfilm, and this is kind of, infamous now about him deciding to get a cut of all of the action figures. And at the time, everybody was like, sure, that's fine, whatever you want. Pennies on the dollar for these little toys. Sure, we'll give you that, whatever.
yeah.
And he had the last laugh because I mean that just was a huge, cash cow for him. And how
Well,
much
it's funny
money-
because he had said for the prequels, the toys paid for the prequels. Really, I believe he said that at some point. It helped, and now of course selling Star Wars toys or toys in general like that
right.
is hard to do. For many a reason, who knows? But
Yeah.
it's just funny how the times have changed. Kids, the way they play now have changed and stuff. Although my daughter likes collecting things though, so she's into the action figures a bit. But
Yeah.
you can't beat those originals though. I'll tell you that. But
Yeah. They're and then I guess just a couple other things. I mean, there was the radio dramas, which I've heard once and never went back to them, and I don't know why. There's no real reason. Like I remember liking them, but I honestly have not listened to them in. I mean, it must be like 15 years since I've seen the radio or listened to the radio dramas. Have you ever
I
listened to
did
those?
it when I was a kid. I did. I remember. I just like you. I don't know if it's because I don't know where I listened. It was on the radio or it was on like PBS. They did whatever they did. I don't know what they did, but
Yeah.
I remember listening to it. But then I never heard it again until I got older, when you could search the internet and find these things, right?
Yeah.
But back then, when they did like something like this, or they showed Star Wars, you saw it once, or something special like that, and you didn't see it for
Right.
10 years, or
Yeah,
you
there was
never
no
saw it
DVR,
again.
there was no on
Yeah.
demand, there was no internet. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the I think it was Jonesy and I were talking about, like, even with He-Man. He-Man came with certain like comic books from like in Germany or something like that, and they had the tapes or whatever. We've never heard them here in the States or whatever, but
Yeah.
you can go online and you
You
hear
can
them.
buy them on eBay too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, but back then it was so hard to get some of this stuff, and for me, the problem was there were a few Star Wars fans around me. Of course, my brother was older; he liked it, but he moved on to chasing girls and doing whatever he did because he was older. The guy down the street was more older than me too, and he didn't hang around with me that much. So I was kind of, my friends liked it, but not liked it like I am, because obviously look at me doing a podcast all these years later.
And you have
So-
a Luke figure next to you too, but go on.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, like, I would escape, play with my action figures, and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
special. It meant something. But yeah, those type of things, you see them once, and that's it.
Right. And the radio dramas, like I wasn't even, like, they didn't become available until I would think I was in high school when I saw them and they had released them on tape, like the
Yep.
collection of them. And I didn't buy them for whatever reason. I didn't buy them then.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, so just something to mention. The radio dramas are out there. Take a listen to them. They're actually pretty fun.
Which I don't mind. Which is why I was excited with the Dooku book.
yeah,
Like when it came out,
very
it was
much,
kind of
very
like
similar
that.
in tone. Yeah.
It was good. It was cool. And then it's funny. I actually, around Halloween time on Sirius XM, they have the radio dramas where they do the Halloween stuff. I recommend you do it, Albert. But anyway, I forget the
Okay.
name of the channel, but it's interesting stuff. It's funny. I don't know. I like the 40s channel too. It makes me think of my grandparents back in the
Oh
day.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. It's weird. I'm weird
The
like that.
Well, we know that.
Yeah.
The soundtrack. Okay, so we're not going to talk about the soundtrack because let's try to talk about the soundtrack as we get into the moments and just bring
Okay.
it up through, naturally, organically as we talk about stuff. But that is definitely a talking point. And then the very last thing that we probably should mention is the special editions for all of
Oh
these,
yeah. Yeah.
because this was a very special time. Like we all, talk about the release of the Force Awakens and
Yep.
what that, or sorry, not the Force Awakens. Well, yes, but that's not what I meant.
Prequels.
Episode 1, right?
Yeah.
That was a very special time for Star Wars fans because of how much time had passed. But I think what gets lost is just how special. And I'm not going to say it was more, but it
Oh, it
was
was
pretty
pretty big.
close.
Oh, it was
Yeah, it
big.
was pretty big,
I
especially
remember going
for
quite a bit. Yeah, it was.
especially for the diehard fans, right? Because
Yep.
the Phantom Menace really allowed new people to kind of come into the genre and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
not to say that the special edition of A New Hope didn't, but there was something about that. It was lightning in a bottle kind of thing because we had waited so long. We had never seen Star Wars in the theater. For many of us, had never seen it in the
I
theater
never seen
with
it, like I just told you. Yeah, I never saw it like that.
right.
So technically, I saw the original Star Wars as a special edition in the theater. That
Yeah.
prior to that, it was DVR and VHS and on TV. Sorry.
Plus,
to
we were
interrupt.
you're 100%, and plus we were being teased with,
Yeah.
THX, the
Yeah,
sound
yeah.
system. Even though back then in the theaters you got stereo, that was
Yeah.
probably it. Dolby if you were lucky on some of the movies. But beyond that, you didn't have THX. You didn't have the stereo systems, the sound systems that we had at least back in 1997. And on top of that, we had this thing called CGI, which we'd seen a lot of prior to that. There were some great movies that had come out, Jurassic Park. There was the stuff that we saw like in The Abyss and Terminator, right? On and on, all these different movies. But now we were getting teased that we were getting all this additional bonus footage.
Oh
And
yeah.
we didn't
That-
know one way or the other, like whoa, really? We're getting the
yeah,
full
that-
story. This is stuff that we
yeah.
never saw that was always intended to be there. And, the just the fandom that was leading up to it, all the marketing materials, the trailer. I do Cantina Radio every once in a while, and I try to play the trailer, the actual trailer for all three movies because it's super dramatic. It's really powerful. I think it's one of their better trailers. I think, in my opinion. But anyway, so let me, I guess, give me your experience and with the '97 special releases and what that was like for you.
Well, it was an amazing thing because I just basically got out of high school. The internet was around, so getting these like I was going to StarWars.com, the special editions coming out. People were buzz. What's the footage? This, that, and the other. And I remember me and my buddy John, we went to the theater. We saw it multiple times for all three. It was a special thing. I think I clung to it because I was like, well, I didn't see the first two in theaters.
Yeah.
So this is special for me. Same with my buddy John. And I'm like, well, we're never going to get anything else again. This is as close as we could get. Again, that same old tune we play. So I should have known then it wasn't going to, But then, of course, we get the prequels. It all helped pay for the prequels and the action figures and all that stuff. So it was just a pretty amazing time. I remember it reminded me very similar of what The Force Awakens was because the lines were out the door and you couldn't get tickets. It was crazy.
Yeah.
From what I remember, and it was awesome.
Oh, it was
special.
great. Yeah. I mean, I was 24 when these came out, 23, 24. So I had nothing to do but wait.
Me
in the
too.
line.
I was out of high school, nothing to do. When I wasn't working at my little job, this is what I did. I went to movies by myself and chilled out or whatever. But yes.
But yeah, I mean, that was, I remember standing in line, camped out, waiting to buy tickets, camped out, waiting to get into the theater, running in, saving, 2 rows of seats and putting bags and jackets and any other kind of, hats, underwear, whatever I could throw on a seat to make sure that seat was safe for the people that were coming in. And we were buying tickets, at that time, there was a group of us that were going to see movies pretty regularly, like once a week. Kind of thing. We were seeing all the big movies every Friday, that sort of thing. So it really was a whole different experience than, than anything else really at the time. But it's just the 97 movies, retrospectively looking back on them, now I'll say this, I still love the re-releases. I don't love them as much after doing this show. because
Really?
well,
Really?
yeah, and here's the thing,
Yes.
because doing a show like this, or doing anything where you're in the weeds of stuff all day long, there are
Yeah.
things that bother me now about the original trilogy as a whole. There are things that bother me about the prequel trilogy, and so for me, the original trilogy special edition is almost like its own set of movies. And I've got things that I really like about it, and there's things that I just do not like about it, and I really question about, was this the beginning of everybody just saying, "Yeah, Mr. Lucas, that's awesome. Do that.
A
That's a
little bit.
great idea." I think
A
that's
little
where it
bit.
started, but yeah, but it wasn't until we get to Attack of the Clones where I think it reached its height. But anyways,
I
that's
always,
a story
I
for another day.
always, I always liked the special edition. See, I was always open to it because, again, maybe it's that disconnect I had because I wasn't in the theater the opening day of when it all really happened or whatever, and I just saw Return of the Jedi and fell in love with that or whatever, and maybe the special editions. Maybe again, maybe it's more my nostalgia because that was the first time I could see it in the theater that way, and I liked the special editions. Like I liked the dewback scene. Granted, when you look at it today, in today's eyes with the CGI, you're like,
Sure,
"Ew."
yeah,
Yeah,
you can
I
nitpick, but
mean,
no, yeah,
they
I get
cleaned
it.
it up in the Blu-ray thing and everything. They, to George's credit, but when you look at the original, it's just a cardboard cutout in the background over there and not doing much of anything. You hear the sound. I thought it was pretty good. I don't think it was now the Jabba the Hutt thing. Okay, well that's kind of like the pair in the old Attack of the Clones there. So I mean
Right.
I'll grant you that. So but I don't look at it. I don't think it was all that bad for the time, I
Well,
guess you could say.
hold that thought, because we are going
Okay.
to talk about one of the scenes later.
McClunky?
We're going to talk about McClunky later, yeah. And I don't know, I do have, and we're actually going to talk about another one because I put crate dragons in here because that's another
Okay.
one that really bothers me. But anyways, okay, so
Why? Because they changed it.
shut up. All right, yes, they did.
But to be honest, I agree with you. The first look at Albert's mad at me. The original call, I liked better than the all right. Let's just leave
Exactly,
it.
that's my point. It's like there's
I'll
stuff
give
that
you
I
that.
like,
I'm
stuff I
giving
like
you
about the 97s, and there's things I just don't really care
Yeah.
much for.
Well, I'll give you that. I'm conceding this to you, Albert. I
Okay.
agree with you. Okay,
right,
you don't
I'll-
have to
I'll-
be mad. You put your head down and discuss.
And shame.
Yes. All right. Continue, sir.
All right, let's get to the on-screen stuff. All right, so we gotta talk about the beginning because this is iconic. It's legendary. It opens with the Fox fanfare. Dun, 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 I mean, that's all like
Yes.
that's synonymous with Star Wars, and it was one of the things when Disney bought them. That was one of the
That was
like
yeah,
you're
that
like,
was the problem.
wait, what's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
happen? Is there
just-
gonna be there? Is it not? What's that gonna be like?
That was like the original, like get you pumped up before the big clapping
Yes.
and yelling and hooting and hollering. That was your cue. Things are going down, man.
Right,
Come on,
that's
get in your
exactly
seat.
right. You had two
You
of
know?
those because you had that.
Yeah. Yep.
Then you went to
And then-
black.
Yeah.
Then the
And
Lucasfilm
the long
logo
time-
would come up,
Yep.
and that
The
was
long
another
time.
one. And then it
Yep.
would go black, and then you had your third one,
Yep.
which was a long time ago in a galaxy
Yep.
far, far away. And then you finally got to let it all out
Yeah. Exactly.
once the main title showed, right?
Yeah. When it comes out. Yeah. Yeah.
So
exactly.
I mean, all that was pretty, and we don't get all that today, obviously, with the Disney changes. But I mean, it was iconic. It was something that we got to experience 3 times with the special edition releases. Again, having not seen anything for 14 years or whatever the time
Something
span
like
it
that,
was.
yeah.
And then we certainly got to see it, obviously, in the original or the sequel the prequel trilogy. We
You'll
got
get
to
it
do all of
straight,
that.
don't worry.
Yeah, I'll get it straight.
Yeah.
Prequel trilogy, and then Disney came in, and that kind of got pulled from us. But that's not really what this show's about. We'll talk about that when we get there. But there were a couple things about it. So the Fox fanfare was one. Seen a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I mean, come on, right? This is the stuff we're talking about. Where have you? And think about this. Back in 1977, there were not many movies that were doing these kinds of things, right?
No, well,
Everything
it
was
was a big
very
thing because-
cookie cutter
Yeah.
in terms
And
of
there
how.
was no actors' names at the beginning.
Right. That
which
was
caused a whole
George
thing for
Lucas,
George. Yeah.
doing that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And I give him. This is what I love about George is he's kind of the rebel. Like, no, I'm gonna do it this way. I don't care what you think.
Right.
But he was right though, because when you look now, of course, I think most people when they look back and they're like, okay, you couldn't put like Alec Guinness, Harrison Ford before all of that or during that. You couldn't do that. He was trying to tell a certain thing, and it had to be. That's the way it had to be.
Yep.
And could you imagine if they did it the other way? Like if he bent to their will, which he wouldn't anyway. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm just gonna do my thing. But But anyway, continue, sir. I'm sorry.
No, so I mean, yeah, so that was one of the things. And then you get the title crawl. We get the crawl,
Yeah.
and this movie, right? 1977 opens up with A New Hope episode 4.
That was, yeah. Well, yeah, that's right. Doesn't
So
say.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, okay, again, it really throws people off, and this is going back to like the Flash Gordon stuff and the influences from that, and the serial pieces and stuff that he was listening to, the radio dramas and that he grew up with as well. But that was one of those things where it's like, you get 4, 5, and 6, and it had people scratching their head, going, okay, well, what happened to 1, 2, and 3? And then later on, we find out, oh, there's 9 movies, and then there was rumors that there was 12 movies, and there was all this stuff in his head, and I mean,
Yeah.
this was, again, just nothing was out there like this. I mean, outside of like Star Trek and some of the other things we named, and maybe the Battle of the Planet, or it's not Battle,
Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes. Thank you.
Yep.
There weren't very many franchises, and the word franchise really wasn't a term that was kind of thrown around. I mean, you had probably James Bond was
Yeah.
one that had been out there for a while, and some
Buck
other
Rogers,
ones, but
maybe.
Buck
Yeah.
Rogers, yeah, from the TV series or radio dramas and stuff. But for movies, this was a big deal, and knowing that there were that many things out there, knowing that this guy had this many stories in his head, and this was a saga, right? We'd never really had those kinds of things at the time.
True.
And then the last, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say true. No, that's
Yeah.
true.
And the other thing that, as far as the opening gave us, and this is kind of, I threw this in the opening, but this is another one of like the things like the soundtrack, because that main title theme, and I've said this in the show before, I don't think John Williams was in his prime when Star Wars came out. I don't think he hit his prime, although this was amazing. Don't get me wrong. He'd already had Jaws. He had this
Yep.
one. Close Encounters was not far behind. But he probably peaked right about 1980, between 80 82, somewhere around there. But this soundtrack is one of the most iconic soundtracks out there. There are so many songs and themes and just notes, right? You can play a couple of notes of the main title theme, and people know exactly what song it is, right? You don't need to play but three notes, sometimes 2 notes. You know what that key is, or that what is
Yeah.
it? The G to I'm
Yeah,
speaking out of my
I'm
rear end.
about
At
as
this point.
musically inclined as you, sir. So,
All right.
yeah, wrong guy. Although Revenge of the Sith is still the better soundtrack out of all of them. We've established that last week, but continue, sir.
I agree with you today.
Oh.
But the other thing, so much like the music, right? Throughout all of
Yes.
the movies, and certainly throughout this movie, the music is pretty epic. The other thing that Star Wars did, and this is something that we spoke about when we did the Rise of Skywalker Art of Rise of Skywalker. Phil Sosak, who works at Lucasfilm, he's the one that kind of did that book. He talks about this thing called the Immaculate Reality, and what that is Star Wars has this worn in kind of, and I'm not going to say dirty, because there are moments when it looks dirty or dirtier, but it looks worn in, right? It looks
Used.
like reality. It looks used, right? Not everything was super pristine. And you look back to like the Flash Gordon stuff and sci-fi prior to that. You look at 2001, everything was really pristine. You had white rooms and really
Yeah.
pressed
Sterile.
outfits and stuff.
Yeah.
Everything was very sterile, exactly. But with A New Hope, I mean, everything looked dirty and dingy and worn in, and it
Lived
looked
in.
like, yeah, it looked
Yeah.
lived in, right? And that was something that was very unique to the movie. And I love the fact, until we got to the Phantom Menace, these first 3 movies were definitely in that line. With Rogue One, I love that they carried that over, and then certainly with the sequel trilogy, I think we got a mixture of both, right? There were times when it needed to be Immaculate Reality, and they did a great job of that. And there was times when they felt like things needed to be pristine and sterile, like the throne room or Snoke's, area.
Yeah.
They had a good way of kind of balancing that out. So, anyways,
Well,
that was
I
just
think
the thing that I loved about Star Wars is that
well,
look.
the with the not the sequels, but the prequels in with the originals, I always saw it like George wanted to show the dirty lived in. This is the after effect of the Empire taking over, and things aren't so nice and pretty.
Right.
And he wanted to show the contrast of that, where things were nice and pretty before all that happened, and kind of, that evolving to de-evolving to wherever we got in the sequel trilogy kind of thing. That's how I took it back in the special edition kind of prequel era times in the early days there of my life there, in my 20s or whatever you want to say. But
Yeah.
anyway, continue, sir.
No, it's a great look. I mean, I think it does really well for the movie and the franchise as a whole.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so let's start with. So again, this show is really kind of us reminiscing for the most part, talking about some of our favorite moments, things that happened, things that
Yes.
stood out to us. And I've got a list of stuff here, but I mean, you feel free to chime in if there's something on here we don't, you see and you don't want to talk about. But I thought we could talk about. We need to talk about Tatooine
Oh
just as
yes.
a whole, because
Yes.
in 1977 there wasn't any of us except for probably one person in this entire world who knew or thought or even had the possibility that we would ever hold or Tatooine would hold so much weight in Star Wars like it does. And if you are a follower of Star Wars and you've seen the movies and you've read the books and you've read the comics and you've played the video games and whatever else, this is the planet we always come back to for whatever reason. And it's just crazy to think that Tatooine, this desert planet that has like,
Unless it's the sequel. Well, no, the sequel trilogy did. That's right at the end.
we went
Yeah.
back to it, right? And there's
Yeah.
always a reason to go back to Tatooine. And I just thought that was, I don't know if he had the intention of that originally going on. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's the creator, and you can't really argue with him, right? But the
Uh,
fact that we go back there so much is just crazy. And it's
well,
sometimes it's comforting, sometimes it's kind of like, really, we're going back to Tatooine?
I think for Luke's story and his father's story, yeah, I think that was obviously intentional. But all this
Yeah,
other stuff that's happened, like even him going back in Attack of the Clones and all that, I'm not so sure that was. I mean, he had to, right? Because he said, "I'll come back and free you, mom."
yeah,
That type of thing, and he's worried about his mom, so he had to kind of close that knot up or loop or whatever you want to say. So yeah, I guess it was planned in that aspect, but as far as like, I think they tried to avoid it as much as they could with the sequel trilogy.
right.
What they did with The Mandalorian, I thought was done very well, to say the least. The way they did that, I thought that was great. Of course, and Mark Hamill did the droid's voice, by the way, in the cantina, which is perfect, considering everything that you know about the history there. So,
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it. I always complain on the show, if you go back and listen, that we go to the well with the characters too much as it is. And Dave always does this, and I always point this out all the time. He does it well, but I think he flirts with maybe doing it too much. Um, that's just my opinion. But anyway,
yeah. No, I agree. And that's kind of the point. It's really like, I don't mind it. It's
yeah.
Tatooine, so it's hard. It's really hard to like have a negative opinion of Tatooine, but you're right. We do go back there so much in everything in Star Wars. I mean, everything in Star Wars goes back to Tatooine, just like everything eventually gets back to Jabba the Hutt. Right? That's a whole nother conversation that we can probably get to at some point. But
But
any-
listen, we're gonna get back to Tatooine again because someone's gonna dig those lightsabers up again. So,
oh,
yay!
the one, yeah, from Rise of Skywalker.
Episode
All right, so
10.
we talk about the importance of Tatooine. Let's talk about crate dragons. We've already kind of spilled the
That was
beans
the
on one of
coolest.
these.
This was one of those scenes that was awesome as a
The
kid.
skeleton,
Yeah, I thought it was
yes,
like, whoa, what the hell is that?
right, right.
And C-3PO, the guy who's scared of everything, is just walking by it like, hey, no
Yeah, no
big
big
deal.
deal.
Like, and I'm like, what is that? Like, I was so like curious. They don't even mention it at
Yep.
all. I had to find
It's
this
never
out.
mentioned.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember if
years.
it's mentioned in the novel.
I don't know if it's the novel or if it was in a comic somewhere. I don't know where the hell I heard it, to be honest. It was so long ago, but I remember saying, "What is that creature? Are we going to run into that creature and deal with that?" But I remember being so like, it's one of those things in the early days of the original trilogy where you had those kind of, you can't call it an Easter egg, but you had something that's there, and you're like, "Well, what the hell is that about?"
Right.
Nobody mentions it; they ignore it.
Right. No
No
big
big
deal.
deal. Or
Exactly.
someone says, "Oh, you fought in the Clone Wars," and then you're like, "Oh, what the hell is the Clone Wars?" And then
Right.
for 30 some odd years, we wondering what the hell that was until we get that answered, right? So these little things, this is what was beautiful about the original trilogy. The prequel trilogy, you couldn't do that really too much. The sequel trilogy, you couldn't either. Like the original trilogy, you had a blank canvas because it was the original, right? So
Right. Yeah.
you could mention something and not explain it at all, which
Drop it.
I
Yeah. Yeah. We'll
love.
pick that up later. Sure.
Yeah, I love. And you can see that a little bit in The Mandalorian. They kind of might mention like the tracking thing. I want to know what the heck the tracking thing. I don't think I'll ever get an answer to it because Dave's gonna be like, "Well, that's just a plot device, no big deal."
Right. Right. We'll never hear the end of
Yeah,
or hear the
exactly. Like
beginning of it.
it's a problem, but we're not gonna answer it. So, which is fine. I don't care. But anyway,
So I threw
what
Cru-
about
I-
you?
well, no, I threw crate dragons for that same reason. Seeing the skeleton, right? All of that. I mean, that's just world building, and certainly teasing us with all kinds of the expansiveness of the universe and of Star Wars itself. But The the other thing was the dewback sound, or sorry, not dewback, the crate sound itself. Like the original sound is still my favorite. I've
Yep.
always thought it was the best one, and I really didn't understand why they had to go back and tweak it. Not only once, but I think it's been tweaked twice. Because I
Well,
think
'cause
the
he
Blu-ray version or the Disney
the
version now
last
has the
one
new version.
well, does it? Is it still the version where it ties in Revenge of the Sith with the thing that Obi-Wan rides?
Yeah,
I think so.
sort of. I think it's I think they're trying
Yeah.
to tie it there somewhere. I don't know,
Yeah.
but the lead here is
You
should
shouldn't
they
have
have
changed
changed
it.
it? I don't
That's
know. I don't think they should have.
no, I don't think they should have. Well, George wants to do, what he does. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't agree. Listen, I love George, and he's not perfect, and he did some changes that he shouldn't have done. I think even he would admit at some point, like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. But
Mm.
it's there. So, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
Dewbacks is another one that stood out, especially as a
Which
kid.
I thought that was fascinating. Those
Yeah.
creatures, and they weren't that big of a deal. But you had the toy, right? They had the dewback toy. You put the
Right
figure
through
in
his
it.
right through his back.
Right through his back there. Which I think added to the mystique to the character, like to the creature.
Yeah.
But that was what Star Wars was. It was like this creature. You'd see a dead creature. You're wondering about that. This is where your mind, as a kid, gets captured. You're like, what is all this? Like, and then
So
we're not
I
even
was-
really. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna
Sorry,
say. So
Albert.
I was that. No, that's all on point. The other thing that really captured me about the Dewbacks were two things. One, I had the original, and I still have it. I can't reach it because I'd have to go around and knock a couple things over. But I had the original storybook for Star Wars, the Scholastic storybook, and that's one of
Yeah.
those things where you open it up, it has a picture of that stormtrooper, and it's one of the promotional shots. It was used a lot early on, but it's a stormtrooper kind of just standing there, and you're really up close, front and center. That camera's right on the front of that Dewback, right? If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But that image was always just so stood out to me as a kid. But then it was right on the heels of Godzilla. Like Godzilla at the time was huge. I mean, I was going to drive-ins and watching these movies, Godzilla movies at the time. The cartoon was just a few years away from coming out, but it was really peaking, at least in the U.S. And so going in and seeing this, for me, Godzilla and the Dewback were pretty much the same thing, right? They were synonymous, and I really couldn't. They were the lines were blurred in terms of all that, but those are
They're
really
pretty
kind of
blurry lines there, sir. Because
Yeah, very
they don't
blurry.
look a thing
I
alike.
know.
Other than the color, they don't look alike. But Godzilla was a big thing, man.
I mean,
love-
it was that Dungeons and Dragons was.
Oh
you
no,
know,
I get it. I
it
get
was
it.
just
I mean,
it's something different, right? We'd never really seen much something like that, and that looked realistic. Like I thought they really did a great job with the creatures throughout all of the the original trilogies and really the series in general. But anyways, so I threw Dewbacks in there because there is something that stands out for it. Let's talk about Jawas because I know you're a huge fan.
yeah. I find them interesting, more so than the Sand People. I'll give you that. I just
Let's talk about both together. We got Jawas
Okay.
and Sand People both on Tatooine. When the movie came out, again, it's one of those things where I don't know that we really realized how much of the well these two things are because we do always go back to Jawas for certain things, like we go to
yeah.
Sand People most recently in The Mandalorian. They came up again.
I like that, but I did my one criticism of the Mandalorian with the Sand People were the way it was executed. Like he's looking through his scope, and all of a sudden they're like there.
Yes.
Like he would have saw them or heard them or.
But I think
don't know.
I always saw that, and I think we talked about this when that episode came out, but it was kind of like, okay, he's trying to show you that there's something about the Sand People, that they're elusive and they're very stealthy because they surprised Luke and they've now surprised, Jin or what's it?
Yeah.
The Mandalorian.
Calico. The Calico guy there, whatever his name was.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that
forget
dude's
his-
name. But
yeah, I
yeah, I mean, they surprised. They're very stealthy and they can surprise you. I think that's really why they were doing it. But
Yeah.
and then of course in Legends we talked about the what's his face the Jedi. He was a Jedi, and then he was a Jedi wielding. He was a lightsaber wielding.
Yep.
Sand
I
person.
forget his name. Begins with an H, doesn't it? Oh, what is his name?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Anyways,
but you know what? I have a problem with the Jawas now.
all right.
I don't like them being off-world Jawas now. I don't like. I don't know if I like that. Like they're off of wherever planet they were on in the Mandalorian. I don't know if I like that.
Yeah, and they look a little different, right?
Yeah,
Their
a little
cloaks
bit
are a little different.
Got red eyes. I don't know.
The yellow eyes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jawas are all right. I thought they were the cool toy. Like I liked the toy, but when you see the movie, you're like, yeah, well, they're all right. I mean, they're kind of comical in a good way. Like I don't think they're like that kind of annoying. They're all right. I don't really
Yeah.
have a big issue. I mean, the Ewoks are a whole other thing, but we'll get to
Houdini.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So, anyways,
yes.
so yeah, I guess Jawas, Sand People. I don't know
Talk
what
about
else
the
to really.
droids, actually, because
Sure.
the thing I want to mention with the droids, and you could tell I was a young boy. I actually thought they were real, because I gotta say I didn't realize I couldn't put two and two together. Like, oh, that's a man in a suit for some reason.
Oh, you're talking about like
Uh,
C-3PO and R2-D2.
Yeah, C-3PO and R2. The other droids, yeah, I get that, but I thought they were like remote control or an actual droid, like
Sentient in some way.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, like I thought they were. I'm like, all right. Then after, like when you see like in is it Empire? Yeah, when they're going through the thing and you see his Anthony's arm goes like this and you can see his skin
Yeah.
there. So it's like, oh, damn, that sucks.
Reality's
Because I
broken.
really wanted an R2 unit. I still want an R2, to be honest. He's the coolest droid of all.
I think that was a testament to the character. I mean, to certainly Anthony Daniels, right, and the character
Oh, yeah.
designs themselves. That's part of it. But they also introduced those characters like Chewbacca as Chewbacca, right? They would always introduce Luke Skywalker, Harrison Ford as Han Solo, and
No, true,
Mark
true.
Hamill as Luke Skywalker, and starring C-3PO and RT. They would bring them on as
Yeah.
C-3PO and R2-D2, and we would see them
Yeah,
in commercials.
It didn't happen
and
the Muppets. It was on the Muppets, so maybe that played into it, and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
I was so young. I don't know. For some
It was a
reason, I thought
long
they were real.
time before they actually credited Chewbacca, right? Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca for certain things, commercials,
Yeah.
TV shows, variety shows, wherever these guys came on, they were always introduced, right? So that kind of didn't help to kind of help you in any ways, right? In terms of like whether or not these things were real. So it certainly it didn't help. It blurred it a lot of times.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Um,
just and the way I have to say speaking of your lived-in world type thing that you mentioned earlier, it really sells with C-3PO, and that was by design because they didn't want the camera showing up in the look and everything, so they had to cover it up, and they did a very good job, especially when they were on Tatooine. So I just wanted to mention that, and then, of course, R2 with all the problems R2 was giving them, and you can tell when they're on the ship there when she's about to give the message when he's sliding away, you could tell.
Oh, he's gonna crash. He's on a crash
He's gonna
course.
crash. You can see that slight little thing, and then they cut.
There you go.
That makes me laugh. It's funny because you don't see it when you're a kid, but as you get older and you get
Yeah.
the behind the scenes stuff and all this, you're like, oh yeah, I can see where that.
He was, yeah.
It's almost like you want to say, wow, A New Hope is kind of a disaster, and how they pulled it off, I don't know, because you can tell with his moments where you're like, oh man, George,
That's a
I feel
collision course
bad.
about to happen. It
Yeah,
happens too, by the
exactly.
way, on the very next scene after she does that, and R2 rolls away. He starts veering to the right on
yeah.
that as well. So there's two moments in
Yeah.
there where it happens. But anyways, no, I'm glad you brought that up because I certainly have laughed a few times watching that. All right, let's move on to the Mos Eisley Cantina. So this is kind of like a subworld of, or I don't know, a sub location or a location within a location thing. But the cantina
The inspiration for the show.
for the show, right? Oh yeah, that's
Yes.
right. I never really. No, I'm kidding. Yeah,
You never tied that together?
Never
Actually,
tied that
it's funny
together.
because the latest, I finally caught up to the Galaxy, not Galaxy, what is it? Gallery, the Mandalorian thing on Disney
Yeah.
there with the behind the scenes, and they showed how they did the cantina, and they used the volume around it. They built like the cantina itself and all that, but then the walls and everything, the background, they just did the volume and made it seem seamless. I don't know. It's an amazing thing, but yeah, the cantina. I love the cantina. It was one of my favorite. Still, like, it's funny because the movie was great. Well, it was good, and then they walk into the cantina, and it's like a whole like, the heroes taking that step into the larger world or the crazier world or into adulthood here.
yeah,
All that Joseph Campbell stuff.
Yep.
And it was just so bizarre. And odd, and then it's funny because when I got older and I went to a bar and you walk in, I was hoping for aliens and everything, but
didn't happen.
turns out it's
Pretty
not
close,
much
though.
different. Yeah, it's pretty much on par with what you see there. It's really like there's a cast of characters and it's funny, and it was just I don't know, for some reason it stuck with me. Han Solo, even though I'm not a big Han Solo guy, mostly because he reminds me of my brother, that swagger and that attitude or whatever. Just the way he's talking, that conversation with Obi-Wan and Luke and and of course the bar fight with the saber and all. I don't know, there was a lot of action in that one
There
little
was. Oh, there's a lot going on. It's
Yeah,
your mind goes a million different directions in that scene, especially for the first time. Just the cast of characters, the number of patrons. I mean, there's so many of them, and our friends over at the Star Wars and Character Show, they have, I think they've done they've done a background on every character in the cantina, and there are so many of them that we never even hear about. There's just so many little tiny characters that you see for a half a second or hiding in the shadows and all that. But and I always wonder, like, when Lucas was pitching this idea or what he had in his mind, whether or not, and this is another one where I felt like, okay, with the special edition, I was okay with the changes that were made. I liked the they got rid of the little worm hand thing, right? That got replaced.
I like the hand.
That was terrible.
It was, but I liked it.
No, see,
just saying, I liked it.
No, I liked it too. But did I like the special edition more? Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah, it worked
so I think
in some places.
Good job.
Yeah. But it's funny because I remember it was Empire Dreams. I want to reference. We always reference that on this show because it's an awesome documentary. Which everyone should check out at least 100 times. And Mark Hamill's talking about the cantina. He says, I was on set. We got all these aliens and all this thing that was described to us. I walk in and like it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. And
but
and
thanks to movie magic.
Yeah, thankfully. And of course, you get the big praying mantis guy.
Yeah.
Which was horrible, but thank God he was in the background. Just like I could see George, like, just put him in the background. He looks like an alien, giant bug.
And they were like putting not cast members but crew, like they were just slapping costumes on these guys and get out there, go stand there while we film this real quick.
That would have been great. I would have loved that. That would have been awesome. I always said on the show, like if they did another cantina scene, like that cantina, Dave, you should have picked the phone up when you did that scene. I would have been happy to be some droid in the background or something, talking on a microphone or something. I don't know. But anyway, just a dream I have.
Well, and you mentioned Han Solo because we did not talk about the cantina with the Solo. Because, I mean, prior to Solo, A Star Wars Story, this was our first official appearance of Han Solo. Yes. And, again, you've already touched on it, but the swagger, the scoundrel, the scruffy-looking nerf herder, the mercenary, right? We get all that in just that few moments with him, and just the arrogance that he has. Like, you never heard of the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. That was also our first introduction to Chewbacca. When the movie came out, the prequels changed that because he was introduced in that. But
you would think they would have had some kind of like more of a connection with Chewie and Obi-Wan, where that scene means more. Like he knows it's Obi-Wan, Jedi, and all that stuff, and they had that kind of connection, or what? I don't know. It would have just. But then again, I don't know. It was.
Oh yeah, I mean that's like that's not even the most egregious. I mean, we can bring up R2, and that's.
Yeah, that's
right.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. But yeah,
R2 was like, hey, whoa, I remember you, dude. What the heck? I remember everything, pal.
Everything, buddy.
Yeah. We can talk about Sabine if you want. We can talk about Satine. We'll bring that up. We'll show Luke those tapes. But anyway.
Yeah, we're telling Luke, hey, by the way, this Vader dude might be your dad.
Yeah, they want you to kill your dad. Just saying. But anyway.
So let's talk about McClunky.
McClunky.
So the question
we loved talking about it when it came out that time.
The question always comes up, and I know what your answer is, but I'll let you say it. Who shot first?
Well, Han just shot.
That's
it. Self-preservation, which I love. Now, I hated that they changed.
Fitted his character more. For me, at least, at the time.
It did, but George was getting soft in his old age and was like, well, it's a kid's thing, But I like the idea of saying, sometimes you got to preserve yourself, man, and you got to take the step you need in order to not be the guy that's going to get shot.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, It's never going to go back to what it was, so just be thankful we got to see it the way it was intended at that, and you can still find it online or something like that. But it's one of those things.
I was about to run and grab a VHS tape and a laser disc, but go on. Sorry.
Yeah, or bootleg of a bootleg of a bootleg. But I'm fine with it now. But I never got into that whole he shot first, this, that, or the other. I kind of like, all right, I just don't agree with it, George. I know why you did it.
Yeah.
I just don't like it.
I think for me, it always. When they changed it, it took away a little bit. I think it diminished, for me personally, it diminishes the ending where he's talking to Luke and saying, when he tells Leia, I'm not in this for your revolution, right? I'm in this for one person, me, right? That moment, and then later on when he's like, he's having that conversation with Luke Skywalker, and Luke's like, "Really, you're just gonna leave?" He's like, "Yeah, I got to get out. I'm done. Hey, why don't you join us?" That's all part of the same character. And I think the minute they change it, it takes away from those two moments, and it really takes away from the bigger moment, which is him finally doing a
Turning
180
it around,
and turning around and coming back and saving and really, doing what's right, and being the good guy that later on, from Solo Star Wars story that we knew.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's I don't really care so much these days about it one way or the other. I think I've debated it enough. I've mentioned it, talked about, voiced my opinion enough that it doesn't really, it doesn't bother me too much. But
yeah, I mean, it's one of those
McClunky.
things. McClunky, I don't understand.
What
that was
is going on?
That was his revenge. He's like, well, you think I sold the company, but I got one last trick left in me, man, and I'm gonna do it to aggravate all of you. It's the scene you all hate, and I'm just throwing one more thing in, just so you can all hate me even more.
So if you, for whatever reason, have no idea what we're talking about, if you go watch the Disney Plus version of Star Wars, Greedo yells McClunky, McClunkey. I think that's the spelling. Those are his last dying words, and it just, I don't really get or understand why. I mean, I do, but I don't, if that makes sense. But anyways.
Did you come up with what it meant?
Yeah, so Missing Words over our buddy Matt over on the Lucasfilm story group put it out there, and I'm forgetting, go Twitter it, go look it up. He came out and talked about it, and I honestly don't remember. It's like, again, it's one of those things where I don't really care anymore, but if you want to go look it up,
Google it. Yeah.
Google it.
That's fine. Okay.
What's his last name? My goodness, I'm like drawing a blank tonight.
Martin? Matt Martin?
Matt Martin, yeah, from the Luke story group. Oh, there you go. This will be the end of you.
Oh, there you go. The cat, Thanks, Girls got it. Yeah, there we go. Yep. There she goes. Really?
But that was the official
why would you,
translation.
How does that translate? This will be the end of you. McClunky does not ring a bell of that to me, George.
I don't know. Whatever. I mean, you're talking. You're debating linguistics and all that. My thing is just like, what difference does it make at that point? Thank you, Brian. Look, Brian's spelling it out there. McClunky. MOUSC. All right. Anyways, you're out of focus here, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
You're drinking too much, or I'm drinking. No, there you go. All right, I'll move on so you can die in peace. All right, so we talked about Clunky. The special edition gave us now, and you've mentioned this earlier, but the Jabba the Hutt scene, which also changes because, prior to, the special editions, Empire Strikes Back was our first. Well, we're not talking about the Star Wars special, holiday special, but
yes.
That aside, Empire Strikes Back was the first time we had seen Boba Fett, and now with the special edition, we not only got Jabba the Hutt before we got Return of the Jedi, but we also got Boba Fett before we got Empire Strikes Back. So, I get it. It makes the whole seeing Boba Fett originally or in Episode 4 cool. I don't know that was really worth it at the price that I think they paid for basically literally doing backflips and jumping through hoops to try to get the original footage that was filmed with the the guy in the furs, and he had the Irish or Scottish accent or whatever it was he was using. British, I don't know, whatever he was using, that accent. I don't know. I think I was fine with it not being in there, and there were two versions of it. I think the original special edition version was, I don't think they did a very good job with the special effects, like the CGI.
Oh, the stepping.
Yeah, it was a little rough. So if you've got that version, go watch it. The more recent version, the Disney Plus version, or the Blu-ray version, I should say, which is where they kind of redid that again. That one's a little bit more palatable. It doesn't stand out, doesn't stick out. So it is still awkward, him going up and then kind of coming down like that. But I don't know, the whole scene, is it really necessary? Did we really need to have that?
No, I don't. The only thing that saves that whole thing is when he says, "Jabba, you're a beautiful human being." That's about it. Is it worth?
See, I have a problem with that line.
Really? Why?
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't seem in character for him. For me, I don't know what it is. Like, I get that they were trying to do it like, oh, he's being sarcastic here or being facetious, and that he's really not a human being. But I never took it that way. I don't know. I don't know if it's because of the way
I get
Han
why
Solo
you wouldn't. I get why you wouldn't like it. Well, I would also say, again, is it worth sticking the two of them in there just to do it?
Right.
No, probably not. So you could have did it a different way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
Anyway.
mean, again, it's nice to see Jabba. It's nice to see Boba because they're in there and there's nothing I can do about it. But if it were me, I would have just left it alone. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's move on to the Death Star. And we're
Yes.
kind of jumping over a lot of stuff, but I mean, this is the thing that we was teased about in the crawl, right? An armored space station with enough firepower to destroy an entire planet.
Yes.
We heard about it. We saw it up front and center. And here we go. They were delivering. This is the Hidden Fortress, going back to the Kurosawa film. This was the
Yes.
Hidden Fortress now, visualized. And, we get that's no moon, that's a space station. I mean, there's all these great lines in Star Wars now that have become memes and super iconic in a lot of different ways. But
Look at the size of that thing.
yeah, cut the chatter red too. But this is the Death Star itself was cool to think there was a space station that large and had enough firepower to do those kinds of things. But we got to witness that with the destruction of Alderaan.
Yep.
Which was like a glorious explosion if there ever was one in Star Wars. Only slightly better than the poor TIE fighter that dies in this same movie. At I think it's Luke kills the last one when they're being chased by the TIE fighters. When they escape the Death Star, whoever destroys the last one, I'm forgetting, I'm drawing a blank right now. But that TIE fighter blows up very spectacular, more than any other one.
Big explosion is a bigger sound and everything else.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, I don't know what that thing was. Just they put a bunch of TNT on it and sent it out, and so they could blow it up. Yeah. Anyways, Alderaan.
Yeah. Yes.
Alderaan places. No more.
Yeah, no more. It's and Leia, very stoic of her there.
Oh, I'm telling you, like that. Now thinking back, I mean, I'm with you too. Like now we're really getting nitpicking, and I don't want to be that guy.
Like,
but come on.
I mean, that's your whole planet. I
mean, and then she gets she gets over to Yavin 4, and she's kind of like, "Oh, hey everybody, I see you. Oh, we got to really get on this.
No time for our sorrows."
Yeah.
What do you mean? Your whole planet just got eliminated, and you're about to die anyway? I don't know.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to jump on this too much because it's a minor nitpick.
Yeah.
But what do we chalk this up to? We chalk it up to the fact that Leia is Leia, and if there was any one person out there that could just be like, I ain't got time for the pain right now, I've got to get the mission done, it's her.
Yeah.
So I give her the benefit of the doubt.
And she consoles even little Luke,
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Put this on you.
I just lost my entire family and planet, and you lost this old man that you've known for about 2 days. But
yeah, exactly. Here's your little blanket. It's like you got a man cold. Here you go. It's funny. But anyway,
let's see. That's the Death Star. In the Death Star, the trash compact. Well, we skip over. God, there's so many moments, but I want to talk about the trash compactor scene and the scene just before that because we use this a lot whenever you screw up something.
Yeah.
The situation normal. Everything. How are you?
Here. Yeah, exactly. Well,
but that's like one of the best lines and scenes, honestly, in Star Wars. The levity, the levity of it all, or the brevity of it all, is just awesome, right? And certainly
the delivery, the cadence, the whole. It kind of reminds you of like the reason I use it a lot is because that's kind of how I would probably handle something like that. Like I've had situations at work that were kind of like that, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're good,
Yeah.
Kind of trying to.
How are you?
How are you doing?
Let's not talk about what's happening here. Let's talk about what's happening over there.
Don't worry about the fire behind me. Just pay attention to what's in front of me. That type of thing. I've had those moments of like nothing that dramatic or it wasn't as funny, but it's a very relatable scene considering what's going on and what the dynamics are. But like you can relate to like talking to your boss kind of like that and like, yeah, we're good. Don't worry. The nuclear reactor's just melting, but don't worry about it.
Sure. Well, I thought you were going to tell us that you've been involved in a number of prison breaks and this is exactly how it goes down. So.
Oh, no. It's far
I'm glad
worse
to
than
hear that.
No.
All right. So that scene, they finally get into the garbage chute, Flyboy. I don't care what you smell, you big oaf, get in there, that kind of thing. And there's Yahoo! And they finally get in the trash compactor. And that was a scene that, as a kid, that really stood out to me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if I was infatuated with garbage. I don't know.
Dianoga, maybe? I don't know.
Well, the Dianoga, sure. But there was something about it. Maybe the water looked drinkable.
Drinkable?
I wanted to drink it as a kid. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Confessions of a Star Wars podcaster. This is what's happening right now.
It's disgusting. It's like toilet water. What? No.
But the walls. So anyways, that wall's closing in, and then we get the, put that thing down before you get us all killed. Absolutely worship. I mean, there's on and on these scenes and lines and that whole. You know what makes that dynamic? I think what's appealing about that is that's when they come together
as a group and they get that mesh and they work, like their personalities all kind of just blend very well, and that's
Yeah.
where we all kind of start to just fall in love with the characters. I think
Yep.
that's probably why it's so special.
Well, and that's you're hitting on something here, and I'm not going to do this, trust me. But there is something
Really?
called the 5 stages of team development.
Oh boy.
Right, here
Oh,
we
boy.
go.
Oh,
Oh
I
boy, I've
wasn't
been waiting to talk
expecting
about this.
Oh,
No,
my
so the
God.
5 stages of team development. One
Really
of the first
on Mike
stages
Brady right now.
is storming, right? And this
Yeah.
is the moment where they all come together and they are storming. They're like clashing, fighting, arguing back and forth. And then over the course of this movie and the next 2 movies, we see them go through all 5 stages and become this really solidified team, which we finally get to see at its high point in Return of the Jedi and the mission that they have to go out to, what do you call it? The Moon of Endor and take out the shield. Anyways,
Yes.
I won't talk about the 5 stages of team development, but you're right. This is the dynamic of the team coming together is something that we hadn't seen yet, obviously, but it was something that we looked forward to and really cherished throughout the next 2 movies as well.
Yes.
Okay, the other something super iconic is the swing. So this is the grappling hook, right? We all wanted that grappling hook that Luke had.
Who does?
Why
My
a
daughter wants a
stormtrooper-
grappling hook, by the way. She wants one for her birthday. She wants one for Christmas. It's on her list. I wanted one. Of course, Batman doesn't
Had
help,
one?
you know. Yep, he had one. Boba Fett has a little thingamajiggy. So it's like you kind of have to have a grappling hook.
But why do you stormtroopers have grappling hooks?
You never
No,
know.
I don't know.
They're
I'm
like
just kidding. We're not answering that.
they're like Boy Scouts. They got to have everything, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
They're always
be prepared.
prepared.
Yeah, be prepared.
Exactly.
That's
So,
the Scout motto.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
Scoutmaster.
But yeah, no. So him swinging across that chasm, that's super like Robin Hood. You know, we talked about that as being one of the influences for sure. You know, him that the little kiss that Leia gives him on the cheek, right? Well, that started
the beginning
whole
of love.
beginning
That's what that
of-
was.
Yeah, the beginning of
Yeah, that didn't pan out for
forbidden
you, Luke.
love.
Yeah.
Only more forbidden would be Lambada.
Well, you can see why he went to Oct 2 and stayed there. You can that'll mess you up, man.
But yeah, the swing was a great. And that one stormtrooper at the very top that is firing down, who kind of just like tilts his head real quick and keeps
Yeah.
firing back. He's my favorite. I don't know if he's got a name. When anybody asks me like, who's your favorite stormtrooper, it's that guy because he's just like, you don't care. He's standing right there, no cover
didn't give up,
whatsoever.
man.
Didn't give a crap. He's just firing down.
It's probably George. That's
Maybe.
probably who it was. Like, I'm tired of these actors.
Okay. And we're going to talk about this a little bit later because it's one of the scenes. And we're not going to do this in 8 minutes, by the way. So I told you.
Well, you better hurry up then.
No, we're not doing that.
Oh,
But this
totally
is a
hurry up, yeah.
lightsaber duel and Ben's death. So let's table that. We'll come back to it because we're going to talk a lot about that here in a little bit. Let's get to
Yes.
Yavin 4 and talk about the temple and the mission debrief. The only thing I'll say about that is the set for the
Rogue?
base itself
Yeah.
I thought was great. Like it's another one of those things. It's like, whoa, what are they? What the heck? It's like it's like a Mayan temple, and
Yeah.
prior to this, everything was really futuristic, and we had spaceships and
And the-
stuff, and like
Gas planet Yavin right there, the big giant ball of red, whatever. That was
Yeah.
pretty cool, And the ship's taking off with the jungle. It was pretty cool. It's like where are we? What is
Exactly.
going on here?
Yep.
Why is there a temple? Why are we in a temple ready to fight? That's not what a temple really is. Why are we doing that? But we don't answer that. No, don't have time. Then we have the general lie about the plans. Princess Leia got the plans.
Yeah.
No, she didn't.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
At the time, she did,
At the time,
and it's one of those from a certain
Yeah.
point of view.
Oh God, I can't stand. We got to ban that in
From
2021.
a certain point of vieal,
Yes,
she did
Yeah.
get the plans. But yeah, you're right. That was great. The special effects there, seeing the little graphic of, the blowing up and all that. I mean, that was just like, I don't know. There's something even very nostalgic about it, obviously now. But I love that the fact that they've been able to carry that even even like in Rise of Skywalker. There are moments in there where the visuals are still very similar. They don't seem that detached from what we saw from Episode 4, and this is 40 something years later, which I thought was kind of cool. So
Yeah.
All right, so enough about that. Let's talk about the attack on the Death Star. And this was the one thing that stands out to me is that it really
The size
feels
of that
like
thing.
you're kind of hitting on it because it's a very dogfight kind of battle, right?
World War II references.
World War II
Yep.
references. I love the fact that we're passing through the magnetic field, right? And you get the crackling of the
crackling.
audio. I mean, that's all stuff that's like very immersive and it's very relatable. So it's another one of these things that I think Star Wars, at least Episode 4, did first, but it was grounded in reality. Like it was futuristic, but there were enough things there that we could relate to in our own personal lives
Yeah.
that made us feel very much a part of it. We didn't feel detached. We wasn't, again, it wasn't that pristine white room kind of thing. It wasn't sterile. There were things in there that were grounded in reality that allowed us to kind of be part of the environment and everything. And this is where we get into like the Star Wars science of things.
Yeah.
Right? We got explosions and fires in space, and we've got sound in space.
Yep.
I don't
All
know.
that stuff.
I was
It's
able to
been
kind
wonky,
of. Well, I mean, yeah. If you
but it's a
throw
movie.
science at it, it's hard to accept. But this is where, you accept it for what it is, and the story is compelling enough that you just kind of don't even think about it. Now, retrospectively, you certainly do.
Yeah.
But we allow a lot of allowance. We provide a lot of allowances for things like this because of Star Wars itself. But yeah. So, and then the other thing we mentioned, the soundtrack at this point is kind of hitting high stride. It's very I don't know what the word is. It's very moving, I guess, especially on that first attack run when they're diving down and you got.
I
the
think it's a
special
very
effects.
uplifting soundtrack, really, when you think about it. I think
Yeah.
it kind of makes you want to be. I don't want to use the word heroic, but more
It's
of like,
inspiring.
yeah, I guess you could say that.
Sure.
Yeah, go with that. That's good. We'll go with that one. Well, compared to like Revenge of the Sith, which I think is the best one, it's darker.
Yeah.
It's more, I think, a personal thing. Where this is like, come on, let's go. Let's
Right.
you know,
This is all
do
about
it.
A New Hope.
Yeah, a good fight, and we can all do this type of thing, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Obviously.
Right.
So
So that at that first attack run, and the one thing that we've kind of not touched about in terms of Star Wars 2, we've talked about the music, but we need to talk about. We don't start talking about. Let's just mention the fact that the special effects throughout this movie are amazing, and what Ben Burtt did with the special
Oh,
effects,
yeah.
and how much time was spent on these, and just the sounds of the lightsabers and the blasters and the
Did you
TIE
do
fighter
what I
sounds and
did
X-wing
when
sounds.
when you were a kid, did you do what I did? And those when you go near a telephone pole and you had the wire, that metal wire that Ben used when he'd hit it.
Oh,
was
it
the
makes that
blaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do that? Because I always
yeah.
did that. I'm like, oh, once I found out about it, I'm like, oh, I can play I can do Star Wars. I
can do
was
Star Wars.
really excited. I'm like, ooh, and you were doing, you're like, oh yeah, it's like in the Death Star. You hear you're like, yes. I couldn't do it exactly like Ben, but I was excited about that. I'm sorry, I had to throw in a
No,
childhood
you're right.
memory there.
And there were,
Yeah.
I mean, there were things that we did as kids growing up because of this movie, to try to mimic these sounds. And even today, my kids will talk about different blasters, and they don't know the names of the blasters, but they know the sounds of the
Sound.
blasters, and they redo those different sounds for that, or they redo the sounds for the vehicles. And again, that's all Ben Burtt's work, and just how
Yeah.
much of an impact his work was on the movie and the franchise and what we know to be Star Wars today.
Mhm.
That whole Death Star run, there's a lot of stuff in there, but I guess the next one that I have is just the use of Force Luke let go, right? Hearing it wasn't the first time we heard Kenobi's voice,
No.
but so we were already kind of like mind blown the fact that Kenobi was talking to him after he just apparently allegedly died. But that's a
More
very
powerful than you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, well, hold that thought. We're gonna get to that. But yeah, the him telling him to let go and turning off his targeting computer, and then you get the Luke, you turned off your targeting computer. What's wrong? Nothing. I'm all right. Right. That whole scene and
The old,
Yeah.
like I'm a badass. Does the thing there.
Right.
That's funny. Oh, anyway. Sorry, I had to
but yeah,
mention
it's a great moment.
Yep.
Because it's the first time we are getting we are starting to really this is the first time that we are starting to feel and we bear witness to what the Force is and what the Force will become, right? Because someone
Yep.
is now literally let go. They've turned off the computer. They've abandoned science. They've abandoned what they know and should know, and they're putting their faith into something that doesn't exist, right? A whole bunch of, hocus pocus, mumbo jumbo kind of stuff is
Midi-chlorians.
right.
Yeah.
Shut up. We're not talking about that. And
That
then
was two things ago. We're
yeah,
good.
it's two. Sorry, we're not talking. Two episodes ago.
No,
and
but obviously he's opening himself up to the bigger thing, and then getting in tune with things, and that's what happened there.
and he was us, right? I mean, not to get all meta, but that's exactly what we as audience members were doing, right? We were now being trusting in the Force ourselves because we're like, well, okay, what? How is this supposed to work? We're just going to allow this. It's just going to happen, and
Yep.
it does. And we're like, oh, okay, the Force, it's
Yep.
a real thing. And now I use a capital F whenever I type it out. All right, so and then Han Solo to the rescue is another amazing moment in there. You know, I don't. It always gets me every time. Like him coming back, and I've seen it a billion times, but him coming back, number one. And then number two, just his character development, right? This was his character growth and the beginning of his character arc, his story arc of, well, not necessarily the beginning of it, but certainly the big
turn.
phase of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big turn and what he
starting,
would
yeah.
eventually become and who he would become. But that was certainly a great moment. And then, after the Death Star blows up, we get Ben Kenobi saying, remember the Force will be with you always. That now becomes what we say just very nonchalantly in Star Wars world as fans to one another.
Yep.
Along with May the Force be with you. So yeah, all that. And then let's get to the very end with the award ceremony, the medallion ceremony. The music again here is amazing. I keep saying the word iconic, and I don't know of a better word to use here. But that's certainly one of them. The atmosphere, being in the temple itself, and just being able to see like C-3PO cleaned up and R2-D2 cleaned up. We talked earlier about the fact that you love the fact that they were real dirty.
Yep.
And here they were like sparkly clean. And that was in itself just like a jarring moment. Like, whoa, look how well they cleaned up. And well, R2's alive too. That we didn't know his fate for all of about 30 seconds.
True.
But yeah, and then we got the big nothing for Chewie. That seems to be something that was debated for years and years and years. And then we got something, The Rise of Skywalker, but
which I have a problem with The Rise of Skywalker. Oh, shocker, I know. But from what I remember in the canon, like that was below a Wookiee thing. Like they don't do awards and that type of thing because they're above that. And I like that. That's not how they roll. But then, JJ didn't know about that, so he wrote that in the thing for some, I don't know. But anyway, that's a whole other, when we get there, we'll get
there. That's the whole fan service thing, or what some would say call fan servers. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But
that one I think was blatant. But, I mean, again, looking at it, it's like a wink and a nod. All right, whatever. It's really, we've seen worse in all of the Star Wars universe of, maybe Han shooting first, that whole debate. So there are worse egregious things that have happened for throughout the saga anyway. So I'm not gonna, but anyway.
So I got this down as a bold move. I have a question here. It says a bold move, and you know nothing about this because I've not told you.
Oh, great! I'm scared.
But here at the very end, and this is something that, again, in my own headcanon, in my own internal struggles late at night.
So this is one of those things that bothers you.
It bothers me.
It's like the Slave One for me. All right, go ahead.
We're the rebellion, right?
Yeah, we are.
We just had the Death Star breathing down our necks.
Yeah.
They nearly blew us into smithereens within a matter of, we were just seconds saved by some kid who trusted in the Force.
Lucky us.
The Empire knows where we are.
Well, you bet.
But we're going to hold an award ceremony. Like, why would they have not just said, we have got to get out of here now. We don't got time for this. Let's pick up, get out of here because they're on their way. They're coming back. And we'll talk about medallions and awards and getting cleaned up and all that stuff a little bit later. But no, they had time to get on new jackets, get their hair combed. They had cleaned up. They had droids that were prepared.
Maybe they weren't on Yavin.
Hair was done. No, they were. We know they were.
No, maybe they weren't. Maybe they're on Yavin 2.
Well, let's just go to that moon over there.
Yeah, maybe
and
they were on
they'll never know. Like,
no, they won't. They wouldn't even dare look at Yavin 2.
I don't.
I'm just saying.
Anyways, I'm being petty.
That's my theory right there. It was a 5-second ceremony. It was like 5 seconds. That's it. We're good.
All right. Well, I'm just saying it took
awards?
a lot of time to get up there.
Okay. All right. It's a movie, Albert. They need the big pomp and circumstances.
Shut up, Albert. It's a movie. All right. Let's get into your scenes because there's still a lot to talk about. But you wanted to talk. Well, no, go ahead. Take it. You got your first one. Go. What is your scene quote analysis?
Well, it's more of a feeling because I think this is several things that happen in this scene. It's obviously when Luke comes out and looks at the twin suns, the sunset.
Yeah.
Which is symbolism for a lot of things. Obviously he's his boyhood time is coming to an end. things are changing, all that stuff. But me as a kid at the time, more towards the special editions things, I think it kind of hit me because I was like, what, 18, 19, 20 at the time when it happened. And you're like, well, I my teen years, I've been in that position where you're looking off into the horizon there and not paying attention to where you are. And you're daydreaming of where you're going to be some point and you're not there and you're frustrated and aggravated, which Luke was. So that hit a chord with me, just, with Luke's character, that you love him even more because it grounds him more to you. But then, of course, when you get the prequels and you get the sunset with Anakin and Padme and all that, when the temple and the changing of the guard again, you get the same thing. And it plays through it as, they're poems, they rhyme, that type of thing with George. I just thought, plus I love sunsets. They're always my favorite thing. I don't like sunrises. I like sunsets myself. I don't know, the symbolism, the music itself, and it highlighting George. This is where he really shines, is when he does no dialogue. It's just the music, and he gets the actors to convey the emotion that you're looking for. Even in Droids, even in Darth Vader, when he's staring off into space, you feel something. And that's a credit to George there to pull that off, or whoever he has directing, the writing, whatever. Just to pull it off is an amazing thing, because I think there's a quote where George said they're more silent films than actual talking films, to be honest, because the key moments are usually when nobody's talking. It's just the music blaring and the visuals are happening and all that stuff. So it was a special scene for me. I don't know. What were your thoughts on the scene, sir?
Well, I would say that, I mean, I think we've all been there. And I think that's part of it's so similar to what you're saying. We've all been in that moment. We've all been Luke in that moment. Maybe not staring off into the sunset and looking at two suns, but really just kind of wondering, like, is this really all that I have? Is this all that's left of life? Am I destined to be here forever? Is there not more out there? Is there, why can't I have more? What's keeping me back, right? How much longer do I have to continue to do this? And certainly as kids, we go through that. As teenagers, we go through that. It's just that longing for independence and to start becoming, making a name for ourselves and finding who we are and self-reflecting in a lot of ways. And that's exactly what's happening in that moment. And I think, again, it's relatable because we've all been there in a lot of different times. And sometimes we go through that in our lives at different stages of our life, right? It's not a one thing that happens. It can happen at any time in your life. And so, so not to get any deeper than that with it, but I think what they've done with the franchise and how that's one of those wells that I think that I don't mind them going back to. I've always enjoyed when they did go back to it. We certainly got to see them again in in Revenge of the Sith, and Aunt Beru and Owen standing there with Luke, and we got to see the twin sons there. We've got the sons at the end of Luke's death, which I think is, again, love or hate the Last Jedi.
No, it was a beautiful death,
right? But the fact that he's looking at twin sons, right, and just the symbolism of it all, and Luke is going through that same thing, like I mentioned earlier. He's going through it again. He's looking at it and thinking, is this really the end? Am I going to be able to make it over into, Force World and be with them? And, I'm leaving all of this behind. And then again, later on with Rey Skywalker, right? At the very end of the movie, she's standing there. She's got the twin sons. And again, she's looking at that. And again, it doesn't go into this in the novel. And this is pure conjecture on my part, but I would like to think that she's doing the same thing and wondering what's next. Right? What is left for me? I've done all of this stuff that we've now seen over the course of the last 3 movies, but what is next for me? Where do I go from here? And it's like these suns are there, and they're like the things, these orbs that are like calling you and pulling you and trying to, providing inspiration in terms of what comes next or what the next steps are. So yeah, I agree. I mean, it's we didn't touch on it obviously earlier on because it's one of your scenes, but
yeah. Well, you could also say like the sons represent Luke and Leia, right? In a sense. And then you see finish the series with the Rise of Skywalker. Rey is actually looking at their spirits, right? So, and the suns are setting. So it's kind of plays a little homage there, It
does. And we get the same thing in Star Wars Rebels, right? The episode where Darth Maul dies is called Twin Sons. And that is by design. There's a reason why. It's very similar to what you just mentioned here.
Yeah. So anyway.
Cool. No,
that's all I
it.
got for mine. Yeah. Well,
all right.
Good.
So let's do mine. And so mine is
here we go. Big time stuff. This is going to take 2 hours now.
It is going to take. It's going to take at least 20 minutes. So I'm warning you now. All right.
Great.
So mine is really about it's about what leads up to the battle between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. And so what I want to do is kind of break this up, chunk it up into the different quotes that kind of happen, the scenes that lead up to that moment, and they're all related in a lot of different ways. So let's start with Tarkin and Vader. And this is right after Vader tells Tarkin that Obi-Wan's here. He's like, Obi-Wan's here? He's, what makes you think so? He says, a tremor in the force. The last time I felt it was in the presence of my old master. And so let's pause. All right. So he says, a tremor in the force. The last time I felt it was in the presence of was my master. Sorry, I was reading the spoiler alert from Vader's girl. So my question is, what was the tremor? I think for me growing up, and I want your opinion here because for me it was always, well, it's the light side. The light side is, you think about it, the light side has been extinguished for a number of years now because of what happened after Order 66 and all the effort that Vader and all the Inquisitors and all them, the brothers and all that, they went through this mass exodus or mass killing of all of the Jedi or anything that was really force related at the time. And so the tremor could simply just be that there was a light presence once again that he felt. And that, it was the fire. Tarkin mentioned that the fire had gone out, that he was the last of a dying religion. And suddenly this fire was back, whether it was the force itself or specifically the light side itself. But that's how I always interpreted it. But you have a different opinion there?
No, I took it more as a kid. I remember taking it as like Obi-Wan.
Just being Obi-Wan himself?
Just being Obi-Wan and like knowing that, all right, Obi-Wan's here, then something's afoot. Something is off because he should be dead, and Obi-Wan shouldn't have come to me.
Right.
I should have found Obi-Wan, and things are a little askew here. So I got to figure out what it is. But this is what the destiny is, so I must confront him, as he says, right? I also got to kind of play with that because when the ship arrives, the Falcon, and he says, "I haven't felt that presence since," and he cuts off. I remember thinking when the originally, obviously, it's like, oh, it's Obi-Wan, but then you got to think about it. Luke's there too. And I was wondering, I'm like, all right, so to your argument, you could say, all right, obviously it's the light because you get Luke and obviously Obi-Wan there together. That's two, and they're rising. Right. You would think the Emperor would have felt it too, and got in touch with him, picked up the phone. Vader, we got a problem.
He's hiding in the compartment there.
Yeah, exactly. So I took it. I remember when the prequels came out after Attack of the Clones, and I'm watching it, and even after Revenge of the Sith, and he says that, and I watched The New Hope. I'm like, I wonder if he's sensing Padme, like because of Luke, like he's confused because he's got Obi-Wan. He senses Obi-Wan, but then he senses because he doesn't know about Luke yet, but feels kind of like Padme-ish somehow at the time. This is me thinking. Obviously, that's not true. That you can't really. Well, I guess you could go down.
Well, in the novel, I don't mean to cut you off, but if you think about it, there's some proof here because in the novel of Revenge of the Sith, Anakin knows about a girl. Yeah. He does not. He thinks it's a girl. One, he doesn't know it's twins, and he feels the presence of a girl, and he thinks it's a girl that they're about to have. So he doesn't know that Luke was ever born. Twins, much less, but the fact that there was a boy and a girl, right? He doesn't know that, and so to your point, he feels something, but he can't pinpoint it. Yeah. Because he has no reason to think that it would be his son because he had a daughter. At least he thought he was having a daughter.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point. I mean, it could be one or the other.
Yeah.
It could be one or the other.
Oh, that line.
But
anyway.
If it's so that's one aspect of it. I think the other thing is if you go back to it being simply Kenobi on the light side of the Force, does Kenobi allow it to happen? All right. So just hold that thought because we're gonna as we continue to break down these lines, that's gonna play into this a little bit more. But this idea, this notion that Kenobi he voluntarily opened up his guard so that Vader could detect his presence, and there's probably some strategy behind that because up until this point, he's not been able to find Kenobi. And you could, maybe it's proximity kind of thing, but then there's counter arguments to, Luke and Leia, especially in Legends, and how they could find each other across distances and all that, right? But nonetheless, suspension of disbelief. If it really is Kenobi, did he open that up and did he allow that to happen? And the more important question is why. And so we'll dive into that here in just a second. Okay, so let's move on to the next scene. So Vader says Obi-Wan is here. The Force is with him. Tarkin says, if you're right, he must not be allowed to escape. The next line, escape is not his plan. I must face him alone. All right.
Well,
So
that kind of goes into what you were saying there, where, all right, the force is with him, so the light is rising. That's
right.
probably what he's feeling here. And he knows Kenobi, knowing Kenobi, his old master's up to something. He doesn't know what it is, though. He knows there's some reason why he's here, and he's going to confront him. Vader, I think, in a way, you could say, all right, Kenobi knows they're trapped, they're in a problem, and Vader kind of knows, all right, well, Obi-Wan's going to lure me into a trap for the others to get away. I know this play. We did it a million times in the Clone Wars.
Mhm.
So we're going to put a tracking beacon on and let them get away. I'm going to finally get my revenge and kill my old master. Obi-Wan knows this and is like, well, all right, my time is up. I'm going to let them escape. But this is in order for Luke to go over that threshold and to get more in tune with the Force, and I can coach him that way or whatever, and he gets away and gets to fight and kill Vader another day for him. So they are playing on each other here. And I think it was almost in a way to kind of, now when we get to the fight, I guess you could say was Obi-Wan when he, well, we'll get there when we get there. But that's kind of my take. Yeah, I don't
I love it. And I love it.
Okay,
And it's very, I certainly had a lot of the same thoughts. I think some of the other questions that come to mind thinking of, escape is not his plan. Did Kenobi or did Vader foresee this? Right? Did he know in some way that he would kill Kenobi? Now, he maybe didn't know exactly how that was going to happen. He just knows that maybe he had a vision of Kenobi dying or some way, or so maybe later on, we'll talk about this too. He's looking down on Kenobi's robes, and that was all he had to go off of. So something was going to happen. And so he knew that escape was not his plan. It could be that maybe he thought that Kenobi was there to blow up the Death Star, or to take him down, or to take out everybody there in some way. How that was going to happen, I don't know. But he
Wouldn't it be great in the Kenobi series that the both of them play on what you're thinking here? Is that both of them in the series, we see Vader having this dream, and then we see Obi-Wan having this dream too. Like they both know that this is coming. And this
I got one better for you that we're going to talk about. Hold on.
Okay, all right.
No, because you're getting me excited about something that I've been theorizing.
Oh boy,
you probably heard me.
Listen,
I
want a less than a 2-hour show, Albert. Let's not. Come on.
I'm trying, dude. I really am trying. But listen,
okay.
I've said that I've already my big thing there is I've said it on the show already. So if you've listened to the show, you already know what I'm going to say and talk about. But let's hold that because I do have something that I want to talk about. That's kind of in that same vein. Where was I? Oh, so, whether or not Vader knew about this and whether, him saying that escape is not his plan, either he knew that he was there to kind of end it all or end himself in some way, or he was going to die. Did he foresee this in some way? Did the Emperor foresee this and tell Vader, he's coming and be ready. It's coming any day now. And when he's not going to leave, one of you is not going to make it out of this. And that's something, it seems like something Vader or Emperor would do, right? Is tell him one of you is going to die or something, just kind of tease it and really send the anxiety and the stress up of Vader to kind of get him ready for what was about to happen.
I like the idea of him not knowing. Like he was caught off guard. Like he had this vision. He didn't know if it was going to be on like the Death Star or that. He just knew someday this confrontation was going to happen. It plays into Rebels as well when the Emperor is talking about you can hunt or whatever. You can pursue because Ahsoka's come back into the picture and you can kind of continue that search that you always want to do. I think Vader in his mind thinks someday it'll happen. That's our destiny. We'll cross paths again someday. I don't know when. And they have these visions. Like, as we always talk with the visions, you get bits and pieces, but you interpret it wrong, which could play into when he's stepping on the thing. Like, what the hell what happened here? This isn't how it went in my vision. Whereas Obi-Wan sees it another way and it kind of happens the right way, more or less. I don't know. Just food for thought.
All right. Well, here's the part that you mentioned earlier about the visions of seeing one another, that kind of thing. But the next line says, I've been waiting. So we're going to flash forward. They finally meet in the corridor there. And he says, I've been waiting for you, Obi-Wan. We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. Only a master of evil Darth. Yeah. All right. So for the longest time, and I always felt like I was in the minority with this, but I felt like we meet again at last. I always took that as they met again.
You're playing into... Oh, don't get me excited like this, Albert.
Listen.
Don't do
so
this
they
to me.
met again. No, you're getting excited now.
Oh,
they met again. They actually met prior to this and after Revenge of the Sith. And really in my heart believe that is true, and I've always felt that is true with the Kenobi series. My real big hope
I have my
is
ways
that
to tie this in.
that we get this moment, because it would make more sense now, I think, because to say, oh, when we last met, I was mad. Yeah, I get it. Maybe technically, but he was already given the rank of Jedi Knight, right?
Yeah.
He was not allowed to be on the council,
Yeah.
but technically that was no longer his master. Although, they always, they refer to
they
Master
always
Yoda
say
as the master,
respect
and they
thing,
say it all
yeah.
that, but it's a respect thing. But at that point, technically, he was no longer his master. And you could argue that, okay, well, he still had a lot to learn, all that, but really, he wasn't on the path of a Jedi anymore, right? He was on the path of the dark side and a Sith Lord. So to
Student.
say I was the master, you're not the learner, it means more than just Jedi versus Sith. So why would he say that? Other than the fact that they've maybe had one encounter, maybe even more. I don't know what their relationship was like, but I would like to think that at some point prior to them meeting up here, they had a number of encounters that they ran into one another that were complete draws, and this was the final moment of them, and it kind of all led up to this. It would certainly play into what we were talking about with the visions and him seeing that, or kind of having some visions of them meeting at some point, and that was how that was going to go out. But go on. So you're like
Okay.
chomping at the
All
bit
right,
here, but
yes.
go ahead.
All right, listen, because if you go back to the early days of the show,
Oh, here we go. There you
and
go.
we were pitching the old Kenobi movie, we'd flesh things out, and I'd always said, and we did a show on this, Obi-Wan once thought as you did, which was a line in Return of the Jedi, which we'll
Right.
get to. I always took that as Obi-Wan tried to bring him back at one point, because Obi-Wan had a conversation with Qui-Gon and said, no, he's the chosen one. And Kenobi leaves Tatooine to confront Vader again and try to bring Anakin back, but fails. And there's a draw somehow. But Obi-Wan kind of just bests him yet again. And that goes into what you just said, Albert, and it ties in nicely, which is why I was so sad when Ahsoka didn't die. Well, what I wanted to happen with Rebels, it doesn't matter if this doesn't have to happen, is where I wanted her to find Kenobi, and she runs into him, and he says, Anakin's gone, man. He's dead. And then she goes off to fight him, and then I wanted her to die, because that gives more of Luke's story weight, because, yeah, Vader's gone, man. He just killed Ahsoka.
Right.
And he's tried to kill Obi-Wan twice, and he kills him the third time. So Luke pulling him to the light is very unreal. Like, it's a hard thing to achieve. So that's how I took it, that, back in the day, that's how I wanted it to do. But like you said, now with this line, I never took it as they've met before. I always actually thought the opposite when he says this. It's like, well, you could say that, okay, he's referring to, well, the last time we met was on Mustafar. I was kind of still the student, the learner, but now here I am, the master, so to speak. They're kind of both insulting each other. They're just kind of getting jabs at each other.
Yeah.
As, master and student would do when they're about to spar or whatever. You know that when you're karate there or whatever. But that line in Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan once thought as you do, which, in the way he says it is like, yeah, Obi-Wan tried, but he failed. And here you are. You're pulling at my heartstrings, you little kid. Stop it. Had to clean that one up. But
well, we'll find out. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm not saying I disagree with
they can
anything.
go there. I mean,
Sure.
This is how, in my mind, when we were back in the early days when we were talking about it, this is how you get Vader back on the big screen.
Right.
And we all want to see more Darth Vader, right?
Sure.
So this is how you can do it. There is a loophole. I don't know if people will buy it or like it, because we just complain about everything as fans these days. I don't know.
But it's there if you want to take advantage of it.
Exactly.
It's one of those, and I'm sorry, but it is one of those certain point of view things. From a certain point of view, this could work.
It's not even a certain point of view. It's left story-wise. It's almost like we mentioned before on the show too, when we get to Revenge of the Sith. I didn't mention it. Is like when Kenobi says, "Is he not the chosen one?" And then he says, "Misread the prophecy was." It gave an out to saying, "Oh, Anakin wasn't the chosen one. It could be something else."
Yeah.
So there's always those things. But anyway.
Yeah. No. All I meant was a certain point of view, not this happening, but the quote of when we'd meet again, right?
Yes.
That itself could be a certain point of view, depending on what happened. It could be
And it could be
referring
indirectly.
exactly to Revenge of the Sith, or it could mean that they did have at least one, maybe several encounters that led up to that, depending on how long they want this series to go with Kenobi. I don't know. All right. So in the interest of time, we're going to continue to
Yes.
move on here because I said it 20 minutes and I've got 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
So the last line. Oh, no, actually, there's one more after this. But the last line,
Sure,
it says,
of course.
your powers are weak, old man. And he says, you can't win. Wait, no, okay, yeah. You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I should become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Okay, so time out. This is the second time now that Vader has, that Kenobi has referred to Vader as Darth.
Yep.
I'm going to chalk this up to, well, it was episode 4.
We didn't know.
He didn't know.
We're working that out.
But
No.
here we
Is that
are.
really his first name? I don't know. But
I don't. That was always like, who calls him Darth? All right. Anyways. All right. Put that
What's up,
aside. We're not
Darth?
talking about that.
yeah.
But that was always something.
I took it as like he's just insulting him. That's all. Like he's just jabbing at him. Like,
You can't win, Darth.
Yeah, like,
How about that?
dude, I'm gonna be more powerful than you.
Right.
Nah. Yeah.
But anyways, the line of your powers are weak, old man. I do like that line a lot. And now, having seen the Clone Wars and having seen the prequels, it does feel like something Anakin would say, to mock Obi-Wan and to tease
Well, that's what
him.
I'm saying. Like that's why you said,
Yeah.
Darth, your powers are weak, old man. Whatever.
Um,
The Schwartz is with you. That type of thing.
But and then
Yeah.
the line itself of I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. There's
Which is playing into the Sith thing, right? Because that's what they want is power.
right.
And he's just saying,
Like
Yeah.
everything that you've done, as powerful as you are, as you think you are, in 1 second, I'm going to trump all of that, and you are going to hate it for the rest of your life. It's very similar to what we see later on, right? In The Last Jedi, when Luke is just taunting Kylo Ren and telling him, "See you around, kid." Right? It's the same kind of moment there,
which
where
sadly went nowhere. But
it's the same kind of moment there where he's just kind of taunting him. And we know, I don't know if there's much debate in terms of what he's talking about really. And he's really talking about, look, I've been training. I hope I get this right because I've been really practicing here.
I
But
really hope so, because this is going to go really bad if I screw
really
this
bad.
one up.
Yeah, I'm going to be eating crow here
Yoda,
if this doesn't work.
You better have taught me well, man, you old
Yeah.
kooky guy. But
Yeah, that's exactly what he's talking about. Is he's going to. So it's two things. One, he's referring to the physical of I'm now going to become a Force ghost, and that in itself is powerful because I'm living forever, and in your mind, in the Sith mind, that is
That's
what you want. Okay,
and you couldn't even you wanted Padme to live forever.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do it, and now I'm
Punk.
doing it.
right.
Ha! What do you
So
think of that?
that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, this is also, he sees this, and whether he saw it or whether Yoda told him or maybe Qui-Gon told him, whether he believes it as part of the prophecy of the chosen one, because at this point, again, he still believes Luke Skywalker is the chosen one, right? He is thinking this is the moment, this is the catalyst, this is what's going to propel Luke Skywalker to take that next step
Leap. Yep.
and leap in terms of his powers, and finally the downfall and the balance in the Force, balance being the the no more Sith. And so those are the two things, right? He knows that this is going to be it. This is the moment which is going to change Luke forever. It's going to change the galaxy forever, and you don't want to do this, dude. So yeah. So that line in itself, and then the very last thing, and we kind of talked about this, but this is the one that always was kind of like weird for me. He kills Obi-Wan. We have no reason to believe, at least at this point, from what we know canon, right? For no reason for us to believe that Vader knows anything about Force Ghosts. Is that true? No, that's not true. Was it true?
Actually,
It's not true.
technically,
That's not
it
true.
is.
Because in Mortis,
yes, but the father does the old. You don't remember a thing.
that's true.
So,
All right, I'm trying to think.
however, though, no, because he sees Qui-Gon when he goes into the well there, the dark well or whatever it is.
Right.
And then when Anakin's got the crazy eyes and just joins the son for the heck of it, right? Out of nowhere. Yeah, I'll join you. The father says, boom, nope, you don't see anything. Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, though, they know things.
They know.
Anakin doesn't.
So I don't think he would know. The only thing that maybe, and we talked about this during Attack of the Clones, when he goes and slaughters all of the Sand People,
Yeah,
and he hears Anakin no, and he hears Qui-Gon Jinn's voice.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, maybe.
Did he? Did he not?
I don't know. If he did, then maybe he's got some idea that people are
Train
able
him
to
talk,
live
yeah.
past the physical. Anyways, the point is, he's looking at this like, what the heck happened? Just as like the
Yeah.
audience is, right? We are Vader. We are looking at this vicariously through his eyes and like, what just happened? He took a
Well, I think he
lightsaber.
doesn't because he's stepping on it like, whoa. what
Right,
happened
exactly.
here?
Like he's tapping it, and that's the point. Like, why is he poking at the Jedi robe? Like, what did he do? Like, is there some power? At least think, well, can the Jedi shrink themselves? And he's worried that he somehow shrunk himself.
He's
and
trying to
just
step on?
step him out, or stomp on him out.
He's Smurf Kenobi.
Right. He's certainly Gargamel. I don't know. It was always just weird that he would do that, and I guess it makes sense that he would. I mean, I don't know what else he would do. I mean, the robe just falls right before your eyes.
Pick it up with the
and-
lightsaber. Like, what's going on?
Well,
here?
I wouldn't be able to lift
Yeah,
it, but
no. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. It's again, it's another one of those things where it's okay. Well, it was 1977,
Yeah,
and this is
exactly.
the first
That's-
iteration. He probably didn't
I
have
mean-
this whole thing mapped out,
Well,
and
for God's sakes, you can see the string before he cuts the thing down. I mean, I mean, it is what it is, Albert. We can't get that technical.
but what do you think, Vader? So get in the head of Vader. What do you think
Yeah,
happened
okay.
here? What does he think?
He's
Happens.
like,
Kenobi got away.
yeah, I think he not like that, but I think he says, I think in his mind he's like, how did he best me? Because I know he did this intentionally. Like Obi-Wan sacrifices Vader doesn't technically kill him because he vanishes before Vader completes the task. Like it kind of just he vanishes like the father and Yoda, kind of just boop, and Anakin's like, whoa! I know he just told me he's going to be more powerful than you could possibly imagine. Maybe he thought it was a Smurf version of him, but he's saying to himself, wait a minute, I didn't see what's going on here. This is new. I wonder if he even told the Emperor. Like, did he go back and say, hey,
Right.
Obi-Wan kind of vanished.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what that's about. Or did he say, I'm going to keep this? I like to believe because if you read, and one of the good things about the comics, is not that I like the comics or anything like that, is you see Vader realizing the Emperor tricked him and used him and all that other stuff.
Yep.
So Vader's trying to take over in a sense or try to escape or whatever he's trying to do. He's going to get back at him somehow. And he's starting to keep some things to himself. And I think this is one of those moments where it happens and
Yes.
he's just not going to tell the Emperor. He's just going to say, yeah, I killed him, especially considering what happens with the Death Star. And he goes flying off in his little TIE fighter and he's like, oh, I'm going to get heat for this. Maybe he even forgot about Obi-Wan. Maybe
he
or
did.
he's getting electrocuted. He's like, yeah, but I killed Obi-Wan. All right.
Right. Yeah.
I'll stop now. I don't know. But
Well,
anyway.
I would say, I guess, so I think about that more than I used to. I think, and prior to this, I would say I just saw it as him thinking Obi-Wan got away, and it didn't necessarily kill him because, and where I look to is Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Where Vader is saying, he says it at least twice, I think, in Empire, Obi-Wan taught you well.
Yeah.
And it almost took and I'm kind of stealing some stuff away from the next show, but I always took those lines as he felt like, or he believed that somehow Obi-Wan was still training him, but not necessarily from the future, like, or as a force ghost. Like, I don't think he really believed
Yeah.
that he was dead and that somehow that was a vanishing trick that he did, something that he wasn't able to explain. And that the years between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and certainly when he finally confronts Luke Skywalker on Cloud City, that the training that he had gotten up until that point was all coming from Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan was still around, right?
Maybe.
I don't know.
It's a possibility. I mean,
That's
'cause
what
he
I
doesn't
used
know
to
about
believe.
Yoda.
Yeah, he doesn't know
No,
about Yoda being around, but that's what I used to think and used to believe. These days, I'm like questioning whether or not he really even, whether he felt like he did really kill him. I don't know.
I don't think I think, it's from a certain point of view that he killed him. Because Obi-Wan became more, I think he believes that, all right, something happened. Obi-Wan became more powerful. And he's still, and maybe he even heard him say, run, Luke. Maybe he was hearing his old master at that point.
The voices.
Right? Yeah, maybe he was hearing it. So he knows something's up. I like to think that Vader takes this moment and says, all right, I got to find out the reason why this happened or how this is happening. And, this is part of the thing Vader was doing on the side while the Emperor's doing his thing. Like, Vader was kind of figuring out what did Obi-Wan do and all this, and then Luke comes into the picture. He's got to figure that out and all that stuff, and he starts to go back to the light, so to speak. Like there's things that are starting to happen. So that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm interested to hear what other people think too. So if you're still listening to the show now, going on 2 hours,
Yep.
yeah,
Great.
let us know. You don't have to.
I've
do
been
much
yawning in
editing.
the background.
I know, we can tell.
Yeah.
Old man.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know what
I
you
should-
think. Certainly on the
Maybe
Twin
he thought
Sons.
he took a nap. Maybe that's what he's like. Well, he's old. He took a nap. I don't know.
If you have thoughts and comments around the Twin Sons or the moments that we just talked about here leading up to Ben Kenobi's demise or disappearing act, let us know. Certainly in Discord or on social media or wherever. You can call the hotline too.
Yes.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to do it. I think before we go, I just one quick shout out. Thanks to everybody who tuned in to the live show. Definitely appreciate you guys sticking with us throughout all of the show. And for those of you that just popped in for a split second and popped out, that was cool. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate that. And then second, I want to give a quick shout out to Theo. Theo is one of my scouts. He is a big Star Wars fan, and him and his father finally subscribed to the show, and they're listening now. So just want to say hello.
Well, hello there.
Be safe. Yeah. So,
Yes.
thanks for
Did
being here.
you didn't influence them on this? Did you? Did you kind
No.
of brainwash?
No, they contacted me. I promise.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I mean, my scouts know I do it. I'm not shy about it. But and I think there's several of them that listen to it. Families now listen to it as well. But no, they reached out like, hey, heard you do a podcast. Is that right? Yeah, sure. Here you go. Here's a link to it. Hopefully you guys are tuned in or listening. So
All right. Okay. Well, I guess that's gonna do
thanks
it.
to my brother who's been here the whole time. He says, I've heard the same debate my whole life. I'm done.
Yeah, well, I can't blame him.
Well,
I mean,
he gets all the he's had what is it? I think there's 6 years that separate us. So he's had to listen to my Star Wars rants for years.
Well,
Years
now
and
I get
years.
to listen to them.
Now
It's
you-
lovely. It's
now you get
lovely.
to.
It's a pleasure. Although I have my own rants as well.
Yeah.
The paint scheme with Boba Fett. But anyway, we should probably end the show now, Albert. 'cause
Fine, we'll end the show. Hopefully next week. No, I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna say he's not
Hope-
gonna be here. We are doing a
hopefully.
show next week, so next week we'll
Well,
be back.
yeah, we'll be here.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
that's a
I'll
warning.
be here.
That's a
Yeah.
warning. But we'll be here for episode 330 and celebrating. That's crazy.
That's
but-
amazing. I gotta
330
be
shows.
honest. That's
But
amazing.
we'll be here for Empire Strikes Back, and given it's the 40th anniversary, I would expect it's going to be about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours again, but we'll see.
No, he's gonna go 4 hours. Is what he's gonna try to do. That's what he's looking.
4 for 40. 4 for 40.
Oh no! All right, I'm hitting the button now.
All right, hit the button. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, we're getting out of here. I hope that's the right one.
Oh, jeez.
There we go. We're good.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.